Chapter 2160. The celestial court's environment was blazing. A majestic figure rose from the ground and looked down on the vast universe. Unparalleled majesty and an intimidating aura. His eyes flowed with endless light while his mouth and nose exuded auspicious aura. The great fortune of the celestial court was gathered here. Big Brother let out a thunderous roar that shook the three realms and swallowed the universe. He created heaven and earth as billions of stars revolved around him. The myriad realms began to resonate with his aura, creating a new era for the celestial court. A terrifying aura spread like a tide, covering the sky and earth. Suddenly, the celestial world entered a bloody era. Suddenly, the three emperor weapons isolated the celestial court's environment from the surging energy tide. Still, there were still terrifying fluctuations that swept across the celestial world spacetime. Dao Ling's aura has completely disappeared. Xiao Junjun looked at the sky and stared at Big Brother with her bright eyes. His figure had completely merged with the celestial court's environment. It's not disappearing, it's appearing in a different way. Ninth World Emperor rode over on a giant white tiger. This peerless woman noticed the arrival of a new era for the celestial court. The moment Dao Celestial Emperor's aura disappeared, the celestial court's environment began to rumble. The power to cover the sky appeared. Dao Celestial Emperor's Dao imprints appeared to the extreme and turned into a golden armor that covered Big Brother's body. It made him look like a new celestial emperor was born, his aura even more powerful. The heavenly Dao changed and was filled with Big Brother's aura. He had completely become the ruler of the celestial court's environment. Yes, Big Brother is Dao Ling's guide, Xiao Junjun said softly. Replacing Dao Ling as the new master of the celestial court, the celestial emperor's Dao won't resist. A new era is coming. At this moment, Big Brother had become the master of the celestial court, the ancestor of the celestial court. The significance was extraordinary. At the same time, Zi Qilin and the other three experts tore through the shackles of the human body. Their figures merged with the new celestial court's environment and began to evolve toward the strongest emperor's domain. They had been preparing for many years. Now that the path of breakthrough had been opened, the breakthrough was quite ferocious. Every one of them had their body constitution skyrocketed. Their battle prowess had increased exponentially, and their auras had become more and more powerful. Unbelievable! What kind of opportunity did they get? They actually broke through at the same time. The 6 elders of the celestial court were aghast. The celestial court was about to give birth to the 4 strongest monarchs. After all, it was the flower of the 3 realms, which was known as the strongest soul medicine in the 3 realms. Furthermore, Zi Qilin and the others had already experienced enough, so it was only logical that they would break through their shackles. Once the 4 strongest monarchs were born, the celestial court's grand providence would become even more prosperous. They were also confused. Why did an immortal Emperor Zong break through? With his power and prosperity, it shouldn't be difficult for him to blend into the new environment of the celestial court, right? Unfortunately, they did not see Su Yan's figure. Instead, the fighting spirit of the celestial court became even stronger. The horn for the final attack had been blown. The celestial court had strong soldiers and strong horses. The army charged forward, killing gods and immortals in their way. All troops enter the strongest battle preparations. Big Black roared. It was already impatient to fight a tough battle with the celestial world. After preparing for so many years, the time had finally come. The Dao Saint Celestial would not take action. She had to oversee the celestial court. Once the celestial world erupted into a life and death battle, it would definitely lead to a series of huge events. The celestial court had to be protected. She and her big brother would not participate. Not only did they have to guard against the dark world, they also had to guard against the mysterious giant from beyond the heavens. The most important thing was the dark world. They would definitely not watch as the celestial world was conquered by the celestial court. The unification of the 3 realms belongs to the celestial court. The soldiers in the sky roared. Their fighting spirit became even stronger. The vast, great world of the celestial court howled with killing intent, turning into countless sword embryos that wanted to split the sky and fight. Boundless killing intent, bone-chilling cold. How strong was the celestial court now? For the celestial world, it was an unknown. The surging killing intent was like a tsunami that pressed towards the celestial world. Countless races felt uneasy. The greatest change was coming. It was not the dark world attacking the celestial world, but the celestial court organizing its army to attack the celestial world. In the Cien People's Alliance, the emperors in the sky had cold expressions. Once this battle began, either they would all be wiped out or the celestial court would be wiped out. No matter what, if the celestial world was broken, they would definitely not have a good ending. There was no way out. How long? Suddenly, there was a huge explosion in the celestial world. The three emperor weapons burned brightly, faintly reflecting a supreme figure that occupied the peak of the celestial world. The aura it gave off was incomparably majestic, covering the entire space-time of the celestial world. The great era of life and death had arrived. Billions of ancient worlds were burning, warning the celestial court, if you dare to invade, you'll be wiped out. The great ancestor shouted coldly, issuing the cruelest warning. Once they attacked, the celestial court would also cease to exist. The three emperor weapons entered their strongest era, absorbing the essence of the celestial world. They rumbled and spun, their aura quickly becoming violet. Terrifying great Tao radiance descended, forming a vast ocean of laws. At the same time, the celestial court and the celestial world produced a terrifying confrontation. The space-time in the boundless outer space began to distort, completely collapsing into a black hole in the universe. The Big Brother's divine gaze was like lightning. Under his majestic figure, a series of the strongest emperors stood tall, blending with the celestial court's environment. It was extremely glorious. Kill! The Big Brother roared, his hair dancing wildly. He was like a supreme demon god descending into the world. The celestial court gave off an endless, austere aura. The slumbering myriad world cauldron suddenly came to life, turning into a huge heavenly soldier, revealing a matchless, killing intent, instantly pressing towards the celestial world. They directly chose to start a war. The heroes of the celestial world roared angrily, directly starting a war. This was too decisive and crazy. They were going to fight a head-on battle. The myriad world cauldron streaked across the sky, its terrifying aura pervading the air. The celestial emperor's orthodoxy appeared, immediately suppressing the grand world, practically suppressing the celestial world. Everyone in the celestial world trembled. The most powerful battle really started. Kill! The Big Brother roared. The cauldron shone, charging towards the celestial world. Home! The three emperor weapons spun to the extreme. Millions and millions of ancient worlds were reflected, scattering down trillions of laws and order, forming a vast ocean of laws, blocking the incoming cauldron. How long? The two supreme weapons began to collide with each other, causing the sky to collapse and be destroyed. The sky was filled with a rain of destructive light, fragments of time, and cracks in the universe, indicating a great disaster. The supreme treasures clashed, scattering down radiance so dazzling that it made the eyes of all creatures in the heavens bleed. They couldn't see anything. Destructive storms were everywhere, engulfing the long river of history, causing a time gap. The myriad world cauldron and the three emperor weapons collided, suppressing each other. The aura was berserk, shattering the stars in the sky. It was even more terrifying than the end of the world. The dome of heaven exploded, crushing the world beyond. You won't be able to break in. The great ancestor roared. The three emperor weapons were in their strongest state, devouring the essence of the celestial world. Countless territories were turned into wastelands. The life in the ancient worlds withered. The foundation needed was too vast and majestic. The two supreme treasures represented the fate of the two races, forming an extremely powerful battle storm. The celestial world was resplendent and blazing. The blood-colored sea of laws surged, affecting all of the celestial world's realm walls. This was the final line of defense, as well as the only line of defense. As long as this path wasn't broken, the celestial court wouldn't be able to break in. Boom! A loud explosion resounded, and a huge axe appeared in the sky. Kill! Su Yan roared. He brandished a battle axe, hacking down crazily. The world-destroying battle axe was ferocious to the extreme. It cut across the celestial world's realm walls, emitting a world-shocking cutting power. He was no longer the Su Yan from hundreds of years ago. After hundreds of years of fighting in the vile earth, his combat strength had skyrocketed. At this moment, he was wielding the Destroyer World Axe. Without a doubt, it was even more peerless than before. Moreover, his figure appeared, draped in the 10,000 Beasts robe. Abruptly, in the situation where two great supreme, true treasures were clashing, he could still stand firm. It's immortal Emperor Zong. The people of the celestial world roared as they stared at the supreme figure. His battle blood burned all over his body, erupting to the extreme. A giant god attacking the celestial world roared, shaking the great world. Behind Su Yan, the strongest giants arrived one after another. Their murderous auras filled the sky. They were all existences that could sweep across the world. Open for me, Su Yan roared. His disheveled black hair danced in the wind. The giant axe shone, and the blood-colored sea of laws in the sky boiled. Heaven and earth were shaking, pressing down on the realm walls of the celestial world, causing the living beings inside to tremble. The celestial court wanted to attack a battle platform. The celestial world experts in this world quickly fled with their clansmen. Boom! The blood-colored sea surged, and the sea of laws burned. It blocked Su Yan's world, destroying battle axe with all its might. At the same time, a large group of experts from the Celestial World Alliance rushed over to the destination. Along the way, a bloody tragedy occurred. They were all slaughtered by the experts of the Celestial World Alliance. A giant roared, "A great battle is coming. Those who dare to defect, those who dare to retreat, all must die." It had already reached this day. With a cruel heart, countless living beings were destroyed, and the first to cause the celestial world to bleed. Open! Su Yan's eyes opened wide in anger. His roar shook the sky. His body emitted vigorous life essence blood, burning violently, stimulating the world-destroying battle axe to a terrifying extent. Vaguely, the law of destruction formed, wanting to destroy the order of the environment. Boom! This axe was too terrifying. It chopped down until the blood-red sea of laws trembled violently. It even continued to collapse, and a large crack appeared. It solidly chopped down on the realm walls of the celestial world. How could this be? The Grand Ancestor's expression changed. Supreme true treasures could continue to increase combat power, and the destructive power contained in them could not be blocked by the laws and order of the celestial world. One must know that these laws and order contain the power of the archweapons. He tried to split a portion of the power of the archweapons to stop Su Yan from penetrating through the war tunnel. But it was useless. The myriad world cauldron had already collided with the archweapons. The two supreme true treasures rumbled and trembled, breaking apart the river of time as they fought each other. This was the artifact giving birth to intelligence and reviving on its own. Boom! Suddenly, a loud explosion sounded, spreading through the billions of ancient worlds and suppressing the celestial world. All living beings looked at the source. Immortal Emperor Zong had returned, emitting a heaven-burning anger. He wielded the world-destroying battle axe and split open the realm walls of the celestial world, opening up a huge war tunnel. His ferocious aura was endless, even more terrifying than the demon sovereign. With a world-shattering aura, he forced his way towards the celestial world. They are here. The celestial world was in chaos. It was too sudden and decisive, directly killing their way over. No one expected Su Yin to grasp the world-destroying battle axe and forcefully open up a path, opening up a battlefield tunnel. Kill! The ancient bugle horns sounded, and the sound of war exploded. The celestial court sent out all their troops. Their shouts shook the world as they pressed down on the celestial world. Kill! We must win this battle. Billions of murderous weapons covered the sky and earth. They took out their murderous weapons, and their blood boiled. Chapter 21:61. Woo Woo. The major ancient worlds of the celestial world trembled and became unstable. An overwhelming, murderous aura came. The aura of destruction surged, and the sky darkened. It was as if an invincible demon god had come out of seclusion and was attacking the celestial world. The earth shook, and the world wall of the celestial world collapsed. They're here. The experts of the major races of the celestial world were uneasy. The celestial world had changed and was extremely oppressive. What would happen in the future? It all depended on this battle. Send out the troops. Send out all the troops. Defeat the celestial court at all costs. The Celestial World Alliance issued an emergency summons. A huge army was already rushing toward the source, trying to stop the celestial court from attacking the celestial world. The final blow of the world-destroying axe was too powerful. A large part of the world wall collapsed, and the dome collapsed. Pieces of the world wall's remnant materials fell down one after another like the remnants of a precious treasure. They formed the chaotic order of the universe and drowned the world. There, an unparalleled, murderous aura surged. The roars of billions of murderous weapons reverberated in the space-time of the celestial world, causing chaos and panic. Open the passage and attack the celestial world. The Black King roared and threw out a large number of formation plates. They fell on the world wall that was trembling. Boom! In the blink of an eye, the arrayed discs that filled the sky burned at the same time. A dazzling light bloomed and shot out symbols of the great Tao that contained the order of the Tao that opened up the universe. It infinitely expanded and expanded the passage that Su Yin had torn open. Dense array discs were burning, shooting out world-opening order Tao laws. These array discs were all made from rare materials of heaven and earth. This was a vast project. The commotion caused in a short time was quite ridiculous. It gradually opened up a huge war passage. Dong, dong, dong. The sound of footsteps was also heard. It was like the pulse of the heavens, shaking heaven and earth. The moment it came out, the giants who were attacking from all directions trembled. Their imperial bodies were about to collapse. The commotion was too great. Murderous aura surged, and the universe wailed. The celestial court's army pressed forward. Billions of murderous weapons emitted murderous aura. It surged in the space-time of the celestial world. The mountains and the earth were destroyed, and the order of the laws disintegrated. This world was heading toward destruction. It was a symbol of invincibility. It was going to sweep through the celestial world. Kill! The army of the celestial court roared as the surging light of blood and chi rushed out of their flesh shells and blended together. The scene was even more spectacular than the breaking of a dam in the universe. Mountains, rivers, and the earth were shattered and then surged into the four seas. Boom! A boundlessly terrifying aura pressed down on the immortal world, radiating and spreading towards the distant world, causing the four seas to tremble. In a world where the sun and moon were destroyed, it was as if the gods and devils of the heavens had descended upon the immortal world, looking down on the world with overflowing, killing intent. Roar! The huge bugle call sounded, triggering the fierce charge of the army of the celestial court. It was like a flood that could destroy the world, forming a magnificent battlefield. A great battle erupted, extremely sudden, and also extremely crazy. A large number of experts from the Immortal World Alliance had already arrived. Countless soldiers and horses were moving towards their destination. The strongest monarchs were coming one after another. They had to seal the gap and block the Celestial Court's main forces to prevent the Celestial Court's army from attacking the Immortal Realm. Otherwise, this battle would be too difficult for the Immortal Realm. Kill! the sounds of battle resounded, shaking the heavens. The world trembled violently, and the environment of the immortal world trembled. The living beings who took the lead in the battle were too terrifying. A series of monarchs fought together, triggering a powerful energy tide that bombarded the universe. The wind howled, and the fire burned. A great battle was about to erupt. In the world filled with bloody light, the two armies clashed. The sky was dyed with blood, and corpses were everywhere. The atmosphere of the battlefield was violent. The world turned blood red, and drifting blood rained down, dyeing the great world red. An extremely tragic aura spread, and the various parts of the immortal world were in turmoil. The battle cries were too fierce, and the frenzied charge was too domineering. Because the immortal world had sent out all their troops, they wanted to swallow the entire immortal world in one go. Zchilin and the others rose from the ground, wielding murderous weapons. They were invincible. The four strongest young monarchs. Some experts in the immortal world camp trembled. In just a few years, the celestial court had produced four strongest monarchs. One had to know that the 6 elders of the celestial court were among them. At this moment, the celestial court was in its glory. The vast world trembled continuously, and the battle between the strongest had begun. It was a sign of bloodshed and madness. 20 to 30% of the immortal world's territories were headed for destruction. The two great worlds fought, and all their trump cards were revealed. Kill. The immortal kings roared, and the monarchs fought with their lives. In a short time, the battlefield was too horrible to look at. The flames of war rippled, burning the void, and were about to burn the entire immortal world. The battlefield had become extremely vast. The Immortal World Alliance tried to stop the Celestial Court's army, but they failed. The various generals led their armies and quickly pulled apart the battle lines, dividing the battlefield world. Boom! The bloody battlefield was suddenly engulfed by the boundless order of laws. The origin of the immortal world was awakening, and the blood-red, killing intent pressed down on the various armies of the Celestial Court. Groups of experts of the Celestial Court screamed. In an instant, they were oppressed by the shattering of their bodies. Their bodies were torn apart, and blood splattered across the sky. Some old experts struggled and resisted with all their might, but it was useless. Soon, their flesh and blood exploded, turning into bloody light. In a short time, the Celestial Court suffered a large number of casualties. Many soldiers exploded into bloody light. The commotion was terrifying. Kill. The Grand Ancestor shouted coldly. He controlled the origin order of the immortal world, and a bloody disaster rained down, attacking the various armies of the Celestial Court. He wanted to start a bloody massacre. Beaster starred. The Sword Ancestor and a group of experts were furious. This was a group of the strongest monarchs going crazy. The sky exploded, and the enemies withered. One after another, the strongest monarchs activated their monarch bodies. In an instant, the environment of heaven and earth was opened. Their realms entered the peak state, and they became monarchs equal to the heavens. The strongest monarch, Tao, laws whizzed out, resisting the origin order that filled the sky. Change formation and regroup. The soldiers all over the world roared. They formed a huge formation and revolved, reorganizing the scattered troops. Boom! At the same time, a large number of killing formations awakened in each army, forming an all-encompassing offensive and defensive formation. They temporarily suppressed the sweeping power of the environment. The experts of the Immortal World Alliance had ugly expressions. The Grand Ancestor's trump card did not cause a destructive blow to the Celestial Court. This army was well-trained. They reacted quickly and continued to fight. The soldiers all over the sky turned into gods and demons. They wielded vicious weapons and slaughtered in all directions. If we can kill the Grand Ancestor and destroy the celestial race, the war will turn around. Blackie's expression was cold. It was just as he had guessed. The celestial race could control the environment of the immortal world. Fortunately, they had divided the space and time of the battlefield in advance, causing the vast origin of the immortal world to be scattered everywhere. The Sword Ancestor and the others could hold on, but this battle was also extremely difficult for the Celestial Court. After all, they were attacking the immortal world, so they had to endure the suppression of the immortal world's origin environment. Their battle strength had been reduced by a lot. The experts of the immortal world rushed over. They had a certain advantage. The two worlds fought. The boundless battlefield rumbled. In the world filled with war cries, the two camps fought crazily. Su Yin, he left. He went on the road alone and swooped down towards the celestial race. He had to kill the Grand Ancestor. If the immortal world's environment was allowed to suppress the Celestial Court, the casualties of the Celestial Court army would be quite heavy. Su Yin carried the giant axe on his back. He took step after step across the vast starry sky. He had not yet forced himself towards the celestial race, but the aura he emitted was already boundless towards the celestial race's world. Su Yin, you dare to come here and throw away your life. The Grand Ancestor occupied the sky above the celestial race. His bronze body was breathtaking. His eyes flowed with bone-chilling, killing intent. The Grand Ancestor naturally hated Su Yin to the extreme. If not for him being able to control the immortal world's origin, the three Emperor's weapons would not have been in operation. The immortal world would not have suffered such a heavy blow. Su Yin's eyes shot out cold lightning. His seemingly elegant figure emitted a supreme, ferocious aura. The world-destroying axe on his back shone, emitting a sharp light that could cut the great Tao environment. Suppress! The Grand Ancestor shouted. A ball of blood-colored origin light floated in his palm. This was a part of the origin energy of the three Emperor's weapons. It could control the origin of the immortal world. With an order, the space-time where Su Yin was instantly spread over. The supreme immortal might covered the sky and earth. Su Yin's black hair was scattered. The giant axe on his back displayed supreme cutting power. He did not even pull out the giant axe. Just the killing power of the world-destroying axe directly tore the sky and earth apart. The great Tao turned into fragments and fell under his feet. Su Yin swallowed the universe. Wherever his feet passed, the heavenly wind whistled as he rushed towards the celestial race. You dare to come here? The Grand Ancestor replied coldly. Although you have a supreme, true treasure, how much power can you unleash? He felt disdain, not to mention Su Yin. Even if a group of the strongest emperors suddenly came, they would not be able to shake the celestial race's foundation. Tens of millions of years ago, Tao's celestial emperor destroyed the Xian people and the reincarnation emperor race's ultimate foundation. However, the celestial race's foundation was still there. The moment it vaguely recovered, the vast celestial race great world revealed an unparalleled aura. Boom! The celestial world was shaken. The power released by the celestial race's awakening was too shocking. It tore through the 33 layers of heaven. The supreme fluctuations awakened limitlessly. The extremely vast power seemed to pierce through the past and the future. The entire celestial race world gradually changed. It was as if the celestial emperor of the celestial world who had been sleeping for many years had revived. The aura he emitted was terrifying. The emperors trembled. The celestial race had completely changed. Their ultimate foundation welcomed a great explosion. They looked down on the celestial world and were supreme, relying on this turtle shell. This proves that the three emperors' clans are already a thing of the past. Su Yin replied. He had already arrived in front of the celestial race's ancestral land. Facing the huge monster in front of him, Su Yin seemed extremely small, but he was not afraid. Bastard! The Great Ancestor roared angrily. A huge hand suddenly reached out from his ultimate foundation, covering the primordial world and pressing down on Su Yin's shadow. It was as if it was crushing an ant, wanting to crush him directly. The Grand Ancestor did not believe that Su Yin suddenly grasped an extremely powerful foundation. Once their celestial race's ultimate foundation erupted, unless the master of the celestial court returned, no one would be able to stop it. Heavens, what is that? Why is the sky dark? The saints were in disbelief as they looked in the direction of the celestial race. The ultimate foundation erupted, but a giant suddenly rose from the ground. His aura was terrifying and boundless. It surged and splashed outwards, burning a black hole in the outer verse. A giant roar erupted. The imposing primal chaos giant awoke from his slumber. This commotion was too outrageous. It was as if millions upon millions of suns had been destroyed at the same time. It shook the great cosmos, triggering endless chaos and panic. This was because the ancient realm that the giant resided in had been destroyed. It could not support his body. FBZW. Chapter 2162. The Supreme Majesty was like a peerless overlord tearing apart the primal chaos, filled with endless heavenly power. The laws of the universe trembled, and the environment was wailing. The giant could be called the ancestor of heaven and earth. His body was huge to the extreme, and the stars in the sky were like dust, so small that they couldn't withstand a single blow. Because when the giant breathed, the stars in the sky entered and exited through his mouth and nose. What is that? Someone's voice trembled, feeling that a giant living in legends had awakened. What kind of living being is that? Heavens, why is it so tall? I can't see the end of it. What race does it belong to? It's unheard of. The Emperor's scalps went numb, and goosebumps rose all over their bodies. The scene in the direction of the Celestials was dreamy, and all the living beings in the world were dumbfounded. What the hell was that? A giant billions of feet tall, its spine propped up the sky, and its feet stepped on the primal chaos. It was so huge that it could be called a living supreme being awakening. The chaos giant was filled with unimaginable power, emitting a peerless heavenly might, causing billions of living beings to tremble. Even the bodies of emperors were about to disintegrate. Heaven and earth collapsed, the great Tao was broken, and this place was about to be destroyed. The giant born from the chaos giant's pores could shake the celestial world's space-time in an instant. His body was too majestic, and even if the celestials' ultimate foundation erupted, they still couldn't shake the chaos giant. Who are you? The grand ancestor was stunned, and his body was a little stiff. His eyes were wide open, and his mind was a little out of control. Although the grand ancestor's body was extremely powerful, and his flesh and blood could be said to be burning in the furnace of the celestial world, his blood was quite vigorous. But right now, in front of the chaos giant, this person was truly like a small child in the presence of a big one. He didn't belong to the same realm at all, and was just like a weak little kid. This was something that had the Grandmaster panicking. Could this be an utmost being? Originally, Su Yin wanted to find some different expressions from the Grand Ancestor's face to further confirm the origin of the Chaos Giant. Unfortunately, he was disappointed. The Grand Ancestor was dumbfounded. Other than shock, there was only shock. Even someone as powerful as this old monster who had lived for a long time couldn't calm down. His mind was in chaos, and he almost roared. What kind of monster was this? Where did Su Yin dig it out from? It was even helping him attack the celestial world, the chaos giant that could be called the ancestor of heaven and earth. Its breath was like thunder from the nine heavens, and all Daos were trembling. Boom! Heaven and earth exploded. A rain of blood poured down, and an extremely ferocious aura suddenly pressed down on the Tian clan. The celestial clan's great earth rumbled. The ancestral land world that dominated tens of thousands of ancient realms began to tremble. Countless territories were torn apart, and large amounts of palaces collapsed. Smoke and dust surged, accompanied by the blossoming of bloody light. The clansmen that filled the skies were blasted apart in large batches, exploding into a rain of bloody light. The martial emperors let out shrill cries of agony. In an instant, it was as if millions of heavy hammers were smashing into their flesh. They found it difficult to bear, and blood flowed from their mouths and noses. The celestial race was bleeding, and their ultimate foundation was about to be destroyed. Bastard, who the hell are you? The great ancestor lost control and roared. He was too careless. He never thought that Su Yin could bring out such a big fellow. Boom! The great ancestor instantly activated the celestial race's strongest foundation. The mountains and rivers surged, and countless Order Law runes appeared. Even the massive ancestral court world began to burn. But even so, the ancestral court world was still trembling. It couldn't defend, it couldn't block the chaos giant's crushing strength at all. The ancestral court trembled, and even more clansmen died. No one can destroy the celestial race. The great ancestor roared into the heavens. The celestial race's foundation instantly entered its ultimate state. The entire ancestral court world burned fiercely, shooting out the light of the great Tao that filled the skies. Even the great stars in the heavens were extinguished. One could imagine just how powerful the celestial race was. At this moment, Su Yin caught a supreme fluctuation. The celestial race was like a slumbering celestial emperor waking up. Endless laws wove together, quickly forming a great golden bell. This bell covered the celestial race's ancestral land, blocking the crazed chaos giant. Dong dong dong. The great golden bell was magnificent and peerless. This was definitely the ultimate defensive strength left behind by the existence behind the celestial race. With a single divine ability, the heaven and earth bell rumbled and spun, shaking out millions and millions of strands of law order, slaughtering towards the chaos giant. The chaos giant's body clanged, as if it had turned into an indestructible first mountain. Su Yan's second primordial spirit revived the chaos giant's human body. Suddenly, the killing sound waves swept over. The giant's majestic body could be said to be immortal and indestructible. Its flesh and blood was comparable to a super-killing weapon, blocking it alive. Open for me. The chaos giant stretched out its huge arm and grabbed the celestial emperor bell. The great ancestor's eyes were about to split open. What kind of freak was this? Could it be that his cultivation was about to catch up to the celestial emperor of the celestial race? The thick palms grabbed the bell and shook it violently. In fact, with every breath that passed, Su Yan's second primordial spirit suffered serious damage. Before he came, he was well prepared. He had almost brought all the primordial spirit mystic medicines from the celestial court. He frantically recovered his losses and continuously stimulated the energy in the chaos giant's body to surge out. The huge arms crushed the celestial emperor bell, causing it to tremble violently. No. The celestial race's ancestral land was about to explode. Countless creatures had died. This race was facing a disaster of extinction. At the same time, the boundless battlefield world lost the great ancestor's control of the celestial world's origin, causing the threat to the celestial court's army to be greatly reduced. The celestial court's army was fully awakened. They pushed forward and killed in all directions. Mountains of corpses and seas of blood formed a tragic disaster. The battlefield was boundless and extremely tragic. Gods and demons roared, destroying rivers and mountains, fighting for hegemony. What should we do? The Celestial World Alliance was about to lose confidence. The Celestials were already unable to protect themselves. The alliance was formed by interests. If it suffered a disaster, the army's morale would be unstable. In a short period of time, the casualties were extremely heavy. Blood flowed hundreds of millions of miles away, and the smell of blood filled the air. The celestial world was drifting in the rain of blood, lightning, and thunder of destruction. The celestial race's ancestral land was going through a great change. The ultimate foundation was the ultimate foundation. The heavenly might that had penetrated through the long river of history suddenly pressed down, causing the celestial emperor bell to surge with blazing flames. In an instant, it shook off the chaos giant's huge arms. Suppress. The great ancestor roared. The celestial emperor's bell flew out of the celestial race and condensed into a large bell. It was like the celestial emperor's hand was pressing down. The bell was boundless, and the mouth of the bell was like a black hole of the universe. It suddenly shrouded down, suppressing the chaos giant within the celestial emperor bell. The great ancestor, who had just finished all of this, felt his scalp go numb. His figure quickly changed positions, crossing the river of time in an inconceivable and strange manner. The region world he had just left suddenly exploded. This was a streak of axe light, directly cleaving apart great ancestors' cultivation Dao field. This region was also riddled with holes, countless territories collapsing. Your reaction is very fast. Su Yin held the world-destroying axe. His eyes shone with cold light. He was very clear about the great ancestor's strength. He was not comparable to the strongest emperor he had killed before. Su Yin, after killing you, I will be the new master of the celestial world. The great ancestor's eyes were blood red. The celestial race's foundation was crippled. They could only suppress the chaos giant for a short period of time. Once the celestial race's foundation was destroyed, the consequences would be unimaginable. He really did not expect Su Yin to be able to move an ultimate killing weapon. Even if the foundation could be maintained, its power would be greatly reduced. The great ancestor's eyes were filled with crazy, killing intent. The three emperor weapons' laws of order turned into a blood-colored halberd, spewing out endless killing laws of the celestial world. You don't have the right to kill me, Su Yin said coldly. Countless years have passed. You haven't moved, and I, Su Yin, have been improving. Although I haven't stepped into the strongest emperor realm, it shouldn't be difficult to kill you. The world was shocked. Su Yin had not stepped into the strongest emperor realm, but he actually dared to start a life and death battle with the strongest peak emperor realm expert of the celestial race. Was Celestial Emperor Zong still the Celestial Emperor war god of the past? Did he still have the strength to sweep through everything? Arrogant thing, hand over your life. The great ancestor shouted angrily. He instantly rushed in front of Su Yin, the blood-colored halberd in his hand, chopping towards his head. Hong! In an instant, Su Yin's blood rushed into the heavens, erupting with his strongest strength. His emperor body was immeasurable. The tin-colored blood boiled, erupting. Heaven and earth were covered. Su Yin's aura covered the world, killing intent overflowing into the heavens. Whether it was his primordial spirit or physical body, in a short period of time, he defied the heavens and stepped into the strongest emperor domain. The aura he emitted was majestic to the extreme. This scene shocked everyone. He was like a great demon god that could destroy the world, devouring all life. It was as if Su Yin had turned into an emperor equal to the heavens. His figure blended with the environment of the celestial world, causing the broken ancestral land of the celestial clan to tremble. Countless terrains and treasures existed in vain, collapsing and disintegrating under Su Yin's mighty and peerless combat power. Heaven and earth were destroyed. Smoke and dust filled the sky. The entire world trembled. Su Yin's blood and qi surged, and his might was heaven-defying. Under his feet were a mountain of corpses and a sea of blood. He could be said to be a peerless god torn out from hell. The former imperial war god was now able to contend with the strongest monarch. Su Yin was even facing the great ancestor. The world admitted that Su Yin was powerful. However, they didn't think that he was qualified to compete with the great ancestor. This battle had already erupted. Su Yin didn't have time to waste. He had to destroy the great ancestor in a short period of time. Kill! The two powerhouses roared. Their auras shook the 9 heavens and 10 earths as their figures soared to the peak of the universe. Clang! The giant axe and the blood-colored halberd clashed. The blood-colored halberd, condensed from a portion of the 3 emperor weapons' origins, could easily trigger the order of the celestial world to attack. However, Su Yin's world-destroying axe could destroy everything. It collapsed the endless order of laws and smashed onto the blood-colored halberd. The two powerhouses roared. The murderous weapons collided one after another, causing huge sparks to bloom. In a short period of time, it was like comet against comet, bombarding thousands of times. The speed was fast to the extreme. The power was also tyrannical to the extreme. Terrifying auras tore apart the heavens. Heaven and earth disintegrated. The battlefield turned into a world of destruction. Su Yan's world-destroying weapon against the great ancestor's blood-colored halberd. It was difficult to determine a victor in a clash of weapons. Su Yan couldn't display the limit of world-destroying power, but similarly, the great ancestor's blood-colored halberd didn't dare to use a portion of the origin divine force either. Kill! The great ancestor roared. His essence energy was boundless. His chest was burning with anger. For him, not being able to take down Su Yan was a great humiliation. After all, this was a peak emperor, a major realm gap between them. Buzz! His emperor body burned, emitting vast blood energy radiance. It was so imposing that it affected the great world beyond the heavens. It could be said that the celestial world's #1 furnace of creation was burning. One had to know that the great ancestor controlled the celestial world's origin energy. Although he couldn't use the heavenly revolving palm to move the celestial world, the current great race was quite powerful. They were even stronger than when they fought against the big brother back then. Don't go! Black King roared and stopped Ninth World Emperor, who went to help Su Yan. This battle must be fought by Su Yan. He had to complete it. If he really broke through in the celestial world and became the lord of the celestial world, the world wouldn't be convinced without absolute power. If Immortal Emperor Zong could kill the great ancestor, this would be Su Yan's most glorious era. Su Yan's blood boiled as he raised his fist and punched forward. The two fists clashed together. Terrifying energy overflowed, the void trembled, and the universe wailed. A peerless struggle for supremacy, a battle of life and death. People could clearly see that the great ancestor's invincible aura was unstoppable as it suppressed Su Yan. However, the myriad beast armor on Su Yan's body suddenly became terrifying. It was as if 10,000 prehistoric beasts had come back to life and blocked the great ancestor's energy source. No matter how strong you are, I will kill you today. Su Yan's eyes surged with killing intent. His body had merged with the myriad beast armor as he attacked the great ancestor. Chapter 2163. A collision that shook the immortal world. On the surface, the grand ancestor of the celestial race was about to become the ruler of the immortal world. He controlled the origin energy of the immortal world and was extremely powerful. He exuded a power that could dominate the immortal world. Su Yan was the immortal Zong of the generation. His growth history was full of myths and legends. At this moment, Su Yan was extremely powerful. His body was covered with the 10,000 beast battle armor, causing his body's combat strength to soar. Boom! The collision of the peak caused the vast environment of the immortal world to rumble. Fist seals against fist seals, the world was overturned, the sun and the moon fell. The ancestral land of the celestial race was on the decline. All sides were occupied. The clansmen either died or fled. The casualties could be said to be heavy. In fact, no one would have thought that this battle would progress to this step from the beginning until now. The huge celestial emperor bell intertwined with supreme laws and order, suppressing the chaos giant. This bell was constantly vibrating. In the great world where sound waves rolled, the two peak experts collided. In a world where corpses were everywhere, their divine power attacked each other. The battle was particularly intense. The grand ancestor's expression was bone-chilling. His eyes shot out the light of purgatory. Su Yan's 10,000 beast battle armor was quite ridiculous. Even someone as powerful as the grand ancestor found it difficult to move it. This was the chaos giant's life treasure. It was sewn with the skin of 10,000 beasts. The aura of the primordial great ferocious was strong and rolling. It made Su Yan look like a peerless overlord. Su Yan, you want to kill me? You think too much. The grand ancestor shouted. His eyes were like divine lamps. He roared angrily, relying on some external objects. You have never been able to achieve anything. It's not difficult to kill you. Su Yan's black hair fluttered. The Emperor's suppression art was activated. His Emperor physique was filled with supreme heavenly power. It was like the Daozu was at the top of the 9 levels of heaven, exuding a peerless pressure. Ignorant child, the grand ancestor roared. His bronze body exuded endless majestic power, supporting the suppression of the world. His body and the great universe merged, whistling out billions of laws and orders. Slash. As soon as he spoke, the laws that filled the skies suddenly evolved into millions upon millions of fist seals, their auras instantly becoming incomparably terrifying. It had to be said that he was powerful and flourishing. It was as if he had turned into a peerless overlord. His fists filled the sky and destroyed everything. A great explosion of energy occurred as he attacked Su Yan with incomparable dominance. He didn't believe that he couldn't break through Su Yan's defense. At this moment, Su Yan's eyes were blazing with killing intent. All of a sudden, the heavens and earth changed drastically. Billions of palm prints connected to the sky, and their auras were equally powerful. The heavenly fate palm was revived, and it could topple the heavens and overturn the seas. It blasted upwards and collided with the endless fist prints. Boom! This world directly disintegrated. The ancestral land of the heaven race collapsed into a huge hole. The world was filled with fragments of the Grand Owl. Terrifying radiance scattered everywhere, shocking all the major races in the immortal world. No one expected immortal Emperor Zong to be able to compete with the Grand Ancestor like this. Chi. Suddenly, in the destructive storm of the world, the dazzling axe light burned brightly, tearing everything apart. Time and years were blurred. Everything was cut apart at lightning speed, and it slashed towards the Grand Ancestor's head. The Grand Ancestor suddenly became bold. He didn't dare to face Su Yan's world-destroying battle axe head-on. He instantly turned his body and dodged the world-destroying battle axe. At the same time, he wielded the blood-red halberd and slashed towards Su Yan's chest. This blood-red halberd was thick and powerful. It emitted an endless amount of the original energy of the immortal world, and it triggered a frenzy of energy as it slashed towards Su Yan's chest. The peerless blade was about to penetrate Su Yan's flesh shell. The 10,000 beast battle armor was extremely difficult to defend against. Su Yan roared towards the sky. His emperor's physique glowed with blood and chi, and a sword light slashed out from his chest. The sword cut through time and opened up the epic river. The blood-red halberd fell into the epic sword sea and couldn't threaten Su Yan. "Junior, give me your life," the Grand Ancestor shouted. The blood-red halberd was dazzling and blazing. It was surrounded by the supreme Great Tao runes, and it revealed a luster that could cut all living things as it tore apart the epic river. Clang, clang. Su Yan waved the giant axe to block, and the two supreme treasures collided. This was an extremely bitter battle. If there was even the slightest mistake, they would enter a place of eternal damnation. The great ancestor of the celestial race had lived for a long time, and had almost reached the level of good fortune. After experiencing countless disasters, his experience in fighting was naturally extremely rich. The battle entered its climax. The two supreme treasures kept colliding, and they also started a pinnacle battle. Su Yan went crazy in a short period of time. He waved his fist and was invincible. In a short period of time, he exploded with 100,000 punches and destroyed the universe. The Grand Ancestor's body was huge, and his blood and chi were at its peak. His fist shone, and there were thousands of dragons revolving around it, revealing great power. He was almost channeling his strongest combat power. The sudden explosion caused the blood and chi in Su Yan's body to surge. Su Yan's mouth and nose were bleeding, and the 10,000 beast battle armor had dimmed. It was obvious how powerful the enemy was. It's a bit difficult for Su Yan to fight with him. The experts of the Celestial Court were anxious. Although Su Yan was a heavenly embryo that had been nurtured for billions of years and had great potential, his growth history was still too short. But Blackie wasn't worried. Su Yan knew all kinds of peerless secret techniques. If he really couldn't stop the Grand Ancestor wouldn't be able to threaten Su Yan's life. Suddenly, earth-shattering roars resounded. Su Yan's hair exploded, and the energy in his body surged. He was like a blood-soaked heaven-suppressing emperor, and his power shook the world as he resisted the Grand Ancestor's fist. Suddenly, Su Yan's figure blazed as if he had turned into a huge monster. The moment his chest glowed, the stealing heaven technique was activated. Two huge arms seemed to stretch out from his back, covering the universe and filled with boundless domineering aura. What kind of secret technique is that? Everyone screamed in horror. They realized that the space and time where the Grand Ancestor was instantly depleted of energy. Even the great Tao seemed to no longer exist. Even the universe seemed to have disappeared. Poof! In an instant, Su Yan exhaled and released billions of energy, performing the heavenly palm. This attack was extremely terrifying, and it could show Su Yan's divine power. Billions of palm prints covered the world and the broken rivers and mountains. They were majestic and shocking as they pressed down on the Grand Ancestor in an instant. Stealing heaven technique, the arch suppression technique, new. FO. Those were the two peerless secret techniques of the Celestial Court, second only to the Tao, Celestial Arch. Any one of them could suppress a Tao Saint Immortal. They were truly invincible giants. Su Yan had two peerless divine powers, and he also had the heavenly palm, a supreme divine power. In an instant, the Grand Ancestor was restrained. The boundless palm prince stole the essence of the celestial world and attacked him. The Grand Ancestor's shocking flesh shell trembled, and his pores were faintly bleeding. In fact, this kind of injury was not an injury to the Grand Ancestor at all. However, Su Yan actually threatened the Grand Ancestor. The world was shocked and heated discussion started. Immortal Emperor Zong was still the immortal Emperor Zong in the past. He always had an invincible battle strength. Junior, you have angered me. The Grand Ancestor's expression was cold. His eyes were soul-stirring and his words were bone-chilling. This was a kind of humiliation that would become the biggest stain in the history of the Grand Ancestor's fame. He stepped forward step by step, and his aura became more and more majestic. It could be said that the celestial world's indestructible immortal artifact suppressed here. This was simply the birth of a terrifying calamity. The Grand Ancestor's angry roar caused the world to collapse. The Emperor blood in his body was burning, and his life essence was leaking out. It rushed out of his body and penetrated the world, condensing into a huge golden bell. Kill! The Grand Ancestor roared. He was especially domineering and prosperous as he pushed the Celestial Emperor Bell to suppress Su Yan. Kill! Su Yan roared. His moves were wide open as he fiercely attacked forward. His fighting strength burned to the limit. His emperor body and primordial spirit intertwined, forming a majestic order of laws. Heaven burial, earth burial, reincarnation burial. The world was bright and dark. The Golden Age seemed to be coming to an end. It was as if an unparalleled demon king sleeping in the reincarnation purgatory had awakened, reversing the past and present. This was quite terrifying. The world was dark and een. The Grand Tao environment was covered. Even a huge celestial emperor bell dimmed. It was as if it had fallen into the reincarnation cycle and was about to explode into ashes. You can't suppress me. The Grand Ancestor roared. He dominated the celestial world with boundless power. The celestial race's celestial emperor's supreme technique was activated. The dim golden bell suddenly blazed. It also suddenly vibrated with a world-destroying sound wave that swept across the burial earth world, bombarding this world to its end. This bell's might shook the universe. The deafening bell rang one after another, forming a golden flood accompanied by the Grand Ancestor's majestic blood essence. It affected the vast world and made it tremble. Su Yan's body trembled. In fact, if it weren't for the 10,000 beast armor, Su Yan wouldn't have been able to fight the Grand Ancestor in this state. Su Yan's body was covered in wounds. It was a tragic sight. He was about to be defeated. Be on your way. The Grand Ancestor pushed the Celestial Emperor Bell over like a supreme expert looking down on the heavens. It's just a funeral bell. It's about time. He suddenly whispered, making the Grand Ancestor's eyelids twitch. He had a bad feeling. All of a sudden, Su Yin stepped on the primordial world in the sky above his head. His figure pierced through the great world and collapsed the 9 heavens. The dome cracked open, and a bloody hole appeared. Su Yin turned into the sky, splitting Overlord. His primordial spirit released the order of the heaven-splitting scripture and merged with the environment of the celestial world. At the same time, Su Yan's emperor physique blazed endlessly, releasing its most terrifying potential. He waved his fist, his domineering aura overflowing, breaking the great Tao of the heavens. The bloody calamity of the celestial world was about to dissipate. The Grand Ancestor's expression changed drastically. The 3 arch-weapons had left for too long, causing the environment of the celestial world to be rewritten. In an instant, Su Yan's aura strengthened greatly, causing the celestial emperor bell to tremble. Not good. The Grand Ancestor roared. Su Yan had torn apart the strongest arch level. With his absolute emperor battle strength, once he stepped into the strongest emperor realm, this caused the Grand Ancestor to panic. Even though a few thousand years had passed since the Emperor Conferral battle, Su Yin was still the strongest of the younger generation in the immortal world. Once he broke through to the strongest arch level, the consequences would be unimaginable. He tried to block it, but the aura emitted by Su Yin's soared in a straight line, and it was suffused with an extremely grand fluctuation. It was vast and boundless, like a supreme overlord that lived in legends. Even the river of time was blurry. Celestial world. Su Yin rose from the ground. His essence, energy, and spirit had completely changed, swallowing all life. The light in the world dimmed, and only Celestial Emperor Zong was terrifying. He looked down at the billions of ancient worlds, looking through the dead and ruined ancient wasteland world. He saw the bloody rivers and mountains of war. He roared, "Only by unifying the world can we establish eternal peace and prosperity. I, Celestial Emperor Zong, want to become the ruler of the celestial world." Chapter 2164. Wave after wave of deafening roars and roars rang out. In an instant, it spread throughout the immortal world, causing millions of clans to roar. His words were deafening, carrying the fate of heaven and earth. His words were the law. The bloody era of the immortal world was declared to be over, and the world saw the light and sunlight. It was like the reincarnation of a great era. Su Yin had a lot of insights, and he seemed to have seen a supreme, great Tao imprinted in his sea of consciousness. The world was shocked. The bloody era disappeared, and the great Tao of the immortal world appeared clearly, causing the immortal world to regain some of its glory days. However, all of this was related to immortal Emperor Zhang's words. It sounded rebellious, but it contained majestic majesty. He wanted to unify the immortal world and create a new era of glory. Immortal world, this is the real immortal world. The younger generation of Sky Prides were overwhelmed with emotions. They saw the path to becoming a powerhouse right before their eyes. Immortal Emperor Zong wants to become the lord of the immortal world. Countless living beings stood up. The old, the weak, the women, the children, and the powerhouses exclaimed. It was too shocking. The immortal world welcomed the greatest change in history. Was the lord of the immortal world going to be born? The bloody calamity has disappeared, and the complete environment of heaven and earth has returned. They looked at the brand new atmosphere of the immortal world and the figure of immortal Emperor Zong, who dominated the world at the top of the sky. It made countless living beings blood boil. The immortal world was going to change. The legend of the past, the glory of the present, wanted to become the lord of the immortal world and create eternal peace. The world was going to be unified and a new era was going to be born. What boldness! What arrogance! Immortal Emperor Zhang's words were still echoing in the magnificent world. The people felt his determination and his great ambition, and it resonated with the immortal world. These words represented the will of the celestial court. They wanted to end the war, unify the 3 worlds, and establish an eternal prosperity. They wanted to unify the world and pass it down for billions of generations. I'm the lord of the immortal world. Su Yan roared. He was like a high and mighty celestial emperor in the sky. His spiritual will was unprecedentedly strong. The grand ancestor's figure suddenly seemed small, as if he was reduced to a green leaf in contrast to Su Yan. Even the celestial Emperor Bel couldn't suppress him. Evil, you're rebellious. You're a tree, a tree. The grand ancestor roared furiously. His words and intentions. His heart. His words and his heart. If it was any other day, when the three Arch clans were at their peak, let alone slaughtering Su Yan's clan, they could even destroy an entire ancient domain. These words were too great. The world was unified, and he wanted to become the new lord of the immortal world. As soon as these words were spoken, countless races in the immortal world were in an uproar. These words were something that they had never imagined. They originally thought that the Heavenly Court's army was here to suppress the three Arch clans and disintegrate the Immortal Alliance. Immortal Emperor, Emperor Zhang's of the immortal world. Su Yan's tyrannical aura filled the sky as he gave off a terrifying mental will. The strongest emperor level was torn apart by him. His blazing figure merged with the environment of the celestial world. His primordial spirit suddenly became much more terrifying, and his soul energy was exuberant. His path of advancement was too magnificent. The vast expanse of space in the immortal dimension rumbled and rose and fell along with it, and the might of the heavens effused and shook the world. He was simply on the verge of transforming into a celestial emperor of the immortal dimension that ruled over the world. Cut off the destiny of the immortal world, and help me become the strongest emperor. Su Yan's words were law. He cut off the destiny of the immortal world. Only the Lord of the immortal world could do this. He cut off part of the essence of the immortal world and penetrated the universe. However, this wasn't a sign of decline. Auspicious signs were born between heaven and earth. Purple chi came from the east and covered millions of miles. Su Yan stood at the peak of the immortal world and looked down on all living things. He cut off the destiny of the immortal world, cut off the essence of the immortal world, and penetrated his body in an instant. Su Yan had supreme means here. He gathered the endless energy of the immortal world and perfected the accumulation of the immortal world's strongest emperor. His combat power sword. He was going to become an invincible giant. Su Yan, give me your life. The grand ancestor roared. His anger burned fiercely and penetrated the celestial Emperor Bel. The golden bell was magnificent and boundless. It suppressed Su Yan's figure. How dare you, demon? How dare you cause trouble? Su Yan roared. He was as cold as a supreme emperor. He killed all the experts who stood in his way and resisted his will. This sentence almost made the grand ancestor mad. His heart and lungs trembled. However, the celestial Emperor bell that he activated was quite terrifying. The bell was imprinted with the order of the great Tao of the heavens, showing the supreme shadow imprints that filled the sky, wanting to kill Su Yan. Su Yan coldly snorted. The three emperor weapons and the myriad worlds cauldron fought. They couldn't affect the immortal world's environment anymore. An unstoppable path of ascension. Su Yan waved his hand. This palm was boundless and exuded a domineering aura. It was as if a new celestial emperor was born. The majestic palm covered the entire sky. Everyone in the world was silent. The war-torn land also trembled. At this moment, Su Yan was too terrifying. He controlled the immortal world's destiny and suppressed the celestial Emperor Bel. The other hand suddenly reached out and pressed down on the great ancestor's figure. History was similar. Back then, Su Yan came out of seclusion as a heavenly embryo. He controlled the immortal world's destiny and fought against the three strongest emperors. Now, Su Yan was even more terrifying and invincible. His hand covered the sky like a five-fingered mountain and suppressed the grand ancestor. Ah! The grand ancestor screamed. His strong emperor body trembled violently. Thick blood spurted out of his pores. He couldn't block Su Yan's majestic combat strength. Immortal Emperor Zhang, used the power of the immortal world to suppress the Grand Ancestor. His body was bleeding profusely, and he was about to explode. In reality, even if Su Yin did not have any source energy, just the fighting strength he obtained from opening the strongest breakthrough would be extremely terrifying. The experts of the Immortal World Alliance were frightened. This was the Grand Ancestor. What kind of opportunity did Su Yin get to control the Immortal World's laws and become the Lord of the Immortal World? Those who surrender will be spared. Suddenly, a giant white tiger broke through the multiverse and crossed the Immortal World's defense lines. Ninth World Emperor's elegant demeanor was outstanding as he roared. Continue to cause trouble, and we'll kill without mercy. The kings of the celestial court roared furiously. Gods and demons came down from the heavens with overflowing killing intent. It was indescribably terrifying. Those who surrender will be spared. On the battlefield, the 6 elders of the celestial court lost control of their emotions and shouted, "Stop! The celestial court will treat the immortal world kindly. If this continues, how long will the people of the great era of blood last? Does the immortal world still have a trace of its past? The immortal world must be rebuilt, reorganized." Waves of roars pierced through the 9 heavens and 10 earths, reverberating in the boundless battlefield. Rivers and mountains were broken and blood flowed endlessly. Countless immortal world soldiers roared. After all, the celestial court was too powerful at this moment. The strongest emperors came one after another, and the supreme emperors came in batches. Their heaven-defying might filled the greater world and was unstoppable. They saw the immortal Phoenix Legion, the legion that had once rebelled against the immortal world. The Monkey King's group was peerlessly powerful. This old man will vouch for all of you. The space-time emperor had arrived. His appearance caused a great earthquake. He was a grand immortal who had once led countless battles in the immortal world and entered the realm of supreme emperors. For the people of the immortal world, the departure of the space-time emperor was a heavy loss for the immortal world. It was also the beginning of a great change. Not only was he a grand immortal, but he was also Su Yan's disciple in name. "You traitors!" The third ancestor screamed and glared at the immortal world army that had put down their weapons and prostrated on the ground. Had they lost? The third ancestor trembled and roared continuously. They were surrendering. The alliance of benefits had collapsed, and large numbers of soldiers had surrendered. This was an unstoppable torrent of history. The experts all put down their weapons and stopped resisting. Boom! The third ancestor wanted to die. The kings of the celestial court had joined forces to force him. How could a single third ancestor resist? His body was torn to pieces, and his eyes were bloodshot. He screamed in grief and indignation. The immortal world is the immortal world. How can it belong to the celestial court? It belongs to the human world. How can it? These words caused some of the immortal world heavyweights to struggle inwardly, but their hearts were filled with bitterness. It was difficult for them to resist. They had been born countless years ago and had witnessed this great era. If the 3 emperor clans hadn't acted so recklessly and forgotten the Tao Celestial Emperor's warning, the immortal world wouldn't have been in such a terrible state. It wouldn't have developed to this point. The evils we bring upon ourselves are the hardest to bear. Let me kill him. The space-time emperor's eyes shone with cold light as he pressed forward. The third ancestor was already heavily injured and was struggling on his deathbed. "You dare to bully me?" The weakened third ancestor screamed. The space-time emperor dared to challenge him. He had no choice but to fight, but he also knew that he might not have a chance. The battle had reached this point, but their master still hadn't returned. This was a pinnacle battle that everyone was watching. There was no doubt about the space-time emperor's strength. He unleashed his full power as soon as he attacked. His body was like a blade that could cut through time and space. The third ancestor's body cracked, and he was sent flying. "We surrender, we surrender." The Immortal World Alliance collapsed, and the soldiers surrendered. Since Su Yin opened the Immortal World's source, even the Grand Ancestor was about to explode. At the final juncture, his expression was completely cold and calm. The Grand Ancestor's bleeding mouth let out a chant. It was profound and unfathomable, as if he was summoning something. His emperor's blood continued to flow out of his chest, gathering into a simple and crude stone statue. Su Yin had captured a fatal threat. There was a huge problem with this stone statue. He swung his axe, wanting to destroy the stone statue. However, this simple and crude stone statue intertwined with blood-red light. The Grand Ancestor used his heart's blood to water it, and stuck an incense stick between the statue's brows. An extremely terrifying aura spread out, shaking the three realms. The immortal world's source laws were unstable and trembling. Su Yin felt as if he had been struck by lightning. He felt as if he had been slashed by a sword, and his body was declining. The immortal world was changing. Su Yin found it difficult to control. His expression was cold. Was this the ultimate foundation of the three emperor clans? The stone statue that belonged to the former master of the immortal world had been brought out. Su Yin looked at the bleeding stone statue. It actually crawled up and turned into a living creature of flesh and blood. Its tightly shut eyes suddenly opened. In an instant, the sky collapsed and the earth cracked. Gods and ghosts wept. The immortal world was abnormal. The blood-red light was like an ocean that poured into the outer verse and drowned the 33 levels of heaven. The terrifying and imposing stone statue suddenly opened its cold eyes. It was as imposing as the supreme celestial emperor of the immortal world. Its figure seemed to pierce through the past, present, and future. The immortal world's Tao trembled. The heavens seemed to be weeping blood, as if they were submitting. The ancestral celestial emperor has been resurrected. No one can live. The Grand Ancestor roared, shaking the immortal world and echoing among the countless races. You've offended the immortal world. You, immortal Emperor Zong, have reached the end. Chapter 2165. The Great Ancestor's words swept through the entire celestial world, causing everyone to feel fear. The ancestor celestial emperor, the existence behind them, was the previous ruler of the celestial world, the controller of the three emperor weapons. If they could really return to the celestial world, would it form an irreversible situation? Boom! The earth shook, and the movement became louder and louder. The celestial world's space-time welcomed an earth-shattering change. Su Yan's originally terrifying figure became a little dim, as if the great Tao at the peak of the celestial world had declined. The old master was not dead. The new master could not be established. The celestial world's great Tao resonated, and an incomparable change occurred. The cold and powerful emperor seemed to have turned into the laws of the heavens. This was also telling the celestial world that this was still the celestial world of the past, that the three emperor clans were still the three emperor clans, and that the master of the celestial world was still the master of the celestial world. Heavens, what kind of existence is that? Is it the previous master of the celestial world? All the living beings in the world couldn't help but tremble. The grand celestial world's dimension rumbled, and the great Tao's order intertwined. Soon, it began to revolve around the bleeding stone statue. This kind of power was too majestic and shocking, and the aura was unparalleled. The celestial world's space-time seemed to revolve, making the bleeding stone statue seem unreachable. It was like the master of the celestial world had returned, looking down on the world and the universe. Ha ha! The ancestor celestial emperor has returned. All of you will die. The third ancestor roared, and his body was full of cracks. He roared, I advise everyone to see reality clearly. Don't be confused by a temporary failure. The three emperor clans are still the three emperor clans, and the master of the celestial world is still the master of the celestial world. Everything else is just a passing cloud. When he said this, the surrendered soldiers all over the world felt their hair stand on end. The master of the celestial world had returned. The grand battlefield, the ruined mountains and rivers. The group of great emperors who surrendered felt a headache. The choice in front of them was a little difficult. They could choose to side with the three emperor clans or choose to side with the celestial court. But no matter which outcome, It foreshadowed a great calamity of death, a calamity of extinction. They struggled in their hearts, and they felt suffocated and uncomfortable. How can the human realm be qualified to rule the immortal realm? All of a sudden, one of the most powerful monarch experts let out a low roar, the blood and chi in his body surging intensely, manifesting his massive body. His 9 heads were surrounded by the most powerful laws of order, his majestic body filling up 100,000 miles, his roar shaking the boundless battlefield. This was the strongest emperor in the celestial world. 9-headed bird, a ferocious aura that shocked the ancient times. He had lived for a long time, and his words held great weight in the celestial world. It directly stood out against the celestial court. This scene caused some of the struggling emperors to instantly choose to side with the 3 emperor clans. In reality, the immortal realm had changed too much. At first, Su Yin controlled the natural source of the immortal realm. Now, the primogenitor statue was causing an even more terrifying commotion. The environment of the immortal world was changing. Blood-colored light surged and poured into the universe beyond. The unparalleled celestial emperor, who could be said to be able to reverse the river of time, was walking over. The change was too great. The kings of the celestial court stood coldly and did not move. The Black King sneered and gave them a chance to choose. Indeed, among the large group of soldiers who surrendered, at least half of them chose to stand with the 3 Thearchs clans. Your choice will make you rejoice in the future. The 3rd ancestor laughed loudly. Since you are done speaking, you can leave now. The space-time emperor suddenly roared. He wielded a black spear that pierced through the great world. Its speed was extremely fast and directly pierced through the 3rd ancestor's forehead, nailing his primordial spirit to death. No, the 3rd ancestor howled. His primordial spirit was torn into pieces. Even his strongest emperor body was starting to be riddled with holes. This caused the 9-headed bird and the other experts' eyelids to twitch. At this moment, the celestial court did not intend to stop and wanted to continue killing. Were they not afraid of the primogenitor celestial emperor statue? Boom! At this moment, the Black King wielded the god-slaying spear and roared, "We have given them a chance. Kill them all in one battle. Kill everyone. Kill, kill, kill." The celestial court's army roared. "Kill them all in one battle. Block them. We still have a chance." The 9-headed bird hissed. Its huge body shone, and its 9 heads spewed out flames. Now, the crude stone statue that the Grand Ancestor had activated with his heart's blood was already unimaginably terrifying. It was as if he had reincarnated and become a living being of flesh and blood. Its cold and emotionless eyes opened and shot out cold lightning, wanting to tear Su Yin apart. Roar! In an instant, a deafening roar exploded. The golden celestial emperor bell that imprisoned the chaos giant suddenly disintegrated and exploded into pieces. A giant hundreds of millions of feet tall waved its fist and destroyed the 2 cold lightning bolts that were attacking Su Yin. "Su Yin, you can't block it!" The Grand Ancestor roared. The 3rd ancestor was dead, and the 2nd ancestor had fallen. The celestial race's foundation had been greatly damaged. Their clansmen were either dead or injured. He was the only expert left in the 3 emperors' clan. No one could stop the irresistible trend. Although Su Yan's figure was a little blurry in the celestial world's environment, he still had unparalleled heavenly might. He said coldly, "The celestial world is destined to be unified and return to its strongest era. This broken stone statue can't stop it." Boom! Bloodlight rushed into the sky. The silent ancestor stone statue revived and turned into a celestial emperor. Heaven and earth collapsed, and large cracks appeared one after another, as if thousands of eras had been split open. The bleeding stone statue returned to the celestial world from an unknown era, and the aura it emitted swept across the land of the celestial world. The unparalleled aura pressed down on the billions of ancient worlds. How strong was this power? The world couldn't imagine the value of the celestial emperor stone statue. It was as if it had really come back to life. The figure crossed the river of time and destroyed the stars of history. The sea of stars dried up, and the sun in the sky disintegrated. This was too terrifying. Who could compete with it? Even the most powerful aura that roared out suppressed the heavenly court, and then rushed to the human realm. The human world was uneasy. The orthodoxies of the various races were trembling. They felt that a colossus had awakened in the celestial world and was returning in defiance of the heavens. Boom! In this thick bronze land, hundreds of metal creatures lifted the bronze chariot. In the chariot, the supreme Empress murmured as if she was living in the past. Vaguely, she opened her eyes that had been closed for millions of years and looked through the land of the celestial world. From this moment on, the dilapidated and thick bronze world rippled with supreme majesty, causing this world that was heading toward death to tremble, as if it was heading toward resurrection. At the same time, the undying heavenly sun burned the sky and illuminated the human world. What is that? People trembled. A huge sun rose slowly, illuminating the endless void of time and space. Soon, the light it emitted illuminated the space-time of the human world. The light was too bright and dazzling. Many people couldn't look at it directly. Deep inside, the Taoist, who was in deep slumber, seemed to have awakened his hibernating vitality. As he breathed out from his mouth and nose, the huge immortal steel in front of him flashed with extremely complicated Great Tao immortal patterns. This reputation was quite mysterious. It was as if it was suppressing Yong Chong for thousands of eras and was about to fly out and suppress the past and present. After dreaming for millions of years, the hibernating heart really seemed to be beating. The hibernating vitality was about to awaken. Even the celestial steel released endless blazing light. It was so heavy that it could suppress a part of history. Boom! A huge storm appeared in the celestial world. Everyone in the universe trembled. A primordial spirit walked out of Su Yan's forehead and exchanged places with the second primordial spirit. When he tore through the strongest monarch-level Yuan Shun and stepped into the Chaos Giant's Psyche Ocean, the Chaos Giant's life aura suddenly became a lot more terrifying. Unbelievable. What kind of creature is that? The giant was billions of feet tall. Its flesh shell seemed to contain billions of undying heavenly suns. It burned fiercely and released endless strength. It tore the universe apart, and even the dome collapsed. Roar! The Chaos Giant roared. The treasures in his body were all burned. His majestic and shocking flesh shell also began to shrink rapidly. Suddenly, the giant changed. It turned into a tall shadow. Its scattered hair danced in the wind. It was filled with endless heavenly power and emitted a destructive light. Su Yan, it's Emperor Zong. It was an extremely shocking scene. Everyone in the world couldn't believe it. This giant was the second Su Yan. The second Emperor Zong stepped out, revealing a peerless, domineering aura. The top of his head whizzed out. Thick chi and blood light rolled out one after another, turning into a sea of blood. It pierced through the heavens and tore the order of the celestial world. The collision caused the sea of stars to explode. This kind of chi and blood was too vigorous. It could be said to be an undying immortal furnace that drowned the golden age. Kill! The second Su Yan rushed over, revealing his peak combat strength. He raised his fist and attacked the stone statue, Celestial Emperor. This was destined to be an earth-shattering battle. The giant formed from the Chaos Giant shell was reduced to Su Yan's clone. The rough stone statue turned into a living being and exploded with the power of an incense stick. Could it be said that the two ultimate living beings of the same origin had an intense collision? Boom! The two terrifying living beings fought together. Their fists collided, shattering the Tao of the universe. The sky was filled with the destructive laws of time and space. The battle for supremacy began. The river of time appeared. The two terrifying living beings went against the past and the present and collided. A huge hole was blasted in the celestial world. It began to extend to the distant world. Dawn! Suddenly, Su Yan's main body charged over. The heavenly embryo had advanced to the strongest emperor realm. Although it hadn't completed the strongest perfection, its combat strength had increased by a large margin. The great ancestor waved his fist to resist. However, he was injured previously. His fist was shattered by Su Yan's fist. It was about to explode. The great ancestor roared. He lost a large amount of blood. He was old and weak. However, he definitely didn't expect that Su Yan had grasped the terrifying clone. It was beyond his scope of understanding. It was even stronger. It actually fought head-on with the primogenitor stone statue. We haven't lost yet. The three emperors' clan's fate is still here. We won't keep losing. The great ancestor's eyes were about to split open. His bleeding body erupted, transforming into the celestial Emperor Bell. He activated the most domineering combat strength. He didn't believe that he would lose to the end. Kill! Su Yan roared. His disheveled black hair danced in the wind. He was majestic. His moves were large and large as he suppressed forward. With a raise of his hand, the great Tao of heaven and earth wailed. An extremely terrifying power suppressed space and time. The environment was faintly trembling. It was about to be suppressed by Su Yan. His entire body emitted the terrifying laws of creation. Su Yan's fierce attacks were exceptionally powerful. They broke the celestial Emperor Bell. Large cracks appeared one after another. I'll kill you first. Then, I'll slaughter your primogenitor, celestial emperor. Su Yan's black hair danced in the wind. His aura swallowed the celestial world. His fists were invincible. They blasted bloody holes one after another on the great ancestor's body. The great ancestor's body trembled. It was extremely difficult to resist. He roared in grief and indignation. He wasn't willing to lose to Su Yan. The creatures of the world were silent. This was the great ancestor. Now that he was being beaten up by Su Yan, what dignity did the three emperors' clan have left? Everything was gone. The clan's fortune in the celestial world had also fallen to the freezing point. Chapter 2166. Su Yan's fist imprint was massive, covering the great earth of the immortal realm, shocking past and present. His body was vigorous. His second primordial spirit suddenly weakened, but this didn't affect Su Yan's exceptional fighting strength. He raised his fist and blasted open a great world, his killing intent boundless. The great ancestor found it extremely difficult to resist, even the heavenly Emperor Bell collapsing. He continuously displayed a series of wondrous emperor techniques, stirring up the declining chi and blood in his body. It rumbled and surged, releasing terrifying power. An enormous emperor's shadow appeared behind him, overlooking the boundless cosmos. Kill! The great ancestor roared, his bleeding body shining. His figure merged with the supreme emperor's shadow, instantly becoming incomparably terrifying. He brandished his fist and attacked. He still carried hope in his heart. Currently, the ancestral statue and Su Yan's clone were fighting intensely, the commotion too great. Heaven and earth were destroyed, the great Tao collapsing. Even the long river of time was distorting and trembling. The two great experts both slaughtered their way into the long river of time, great collisions occurring one after another. Roar! The chaos giant roared, the human body great treasure burning fiercely. In reality, if not for Su Yan's primordial spirit not entering the most powerful emperor domain, the chaos giant's fighting strength would have increased even further. The axe split heaven and earth, the world-destroying axe erupting, suddenly tearing apart the long river of time, even triggering a spatial fault. The ancestral statue's eyes shot out cold lightning. Its terror was unquestionable. If not for the chaos giant grasping the world-destroying axe, it would have been extremely difficult to fight them head-on. Cheat! A terrifying strike tore apart the ancestral statue's most powerful symbol imprints, hacking towards the ancestral statue. Kung Chong. The stone statue bled, but it was ridiculously sturdy. The world-destroying axe couldn't completely hack it apart, only leaving behind a crack. One could well imagine how precious this stone statue was. It definitely refined the essence of countless immortal materials, itself an extremely terrifying supreme treasure. Kill. The stone statue roared angrily, as if it turned into a living creature. It brandished its emperor's fist, its aura instantly terrifying beyond compare. Pooh! The primal chaos giant coughed up blood. It wasn't that he wasn't strong enough. In fact, Su Yan's primordial spirit was still lacking in maturity. This attack had almost shaken Su Yan's primordial spirit out, and it was about to smash into the void and explode into soul light. The primal chaos giant roared angrily. Its tall and sturdy body was dyed in blood, a bloody hole in its chest. However, its breastbone was too sturdy. It began to chant on its own, chanting sutrous like a sea, releasing an undying and imperishable aura, an unrivaled heavenly art pressed down, unexpectedly moving towards revival, rumbling loudly until the ancestral statue trembled fiercely. The pinnacle battle had reached its climax. The battle was extremely dangerous and cruel. Once Su Yan's avatar fell, the losses would be too great. Right now, Su Yan's main body was pushing forward. He had to get rid of the Grand Ancestor as soon as possible. The Grand Ancestor had already begun to fight with his life on the line. A series of secret techniques and divine abilities were unleashed, pushing his foundation in unison. He turned into an overlord that could overturn rivers and seas. His roar shook heaven and earth, and his body merged with the Tao. He pushed forth unparalleled magical power, and millions upon millions of layers of power struck toward Su Yan. Life and death are about to be decided. Everyone let out shocking cries because the more immortal Emperor Zong fought, the stronger he became. The path to a breakthrough had been opened. His pores absorbed the essence of the celestial world, including a huge amount of material energy. The battle strength of the strongest monarch continued to improve, causing Su Yan's battle body to burn fiercely. As his chest breathed, waves of the origin of all life lingered around. He was so majestic that he could be called a giant god, emitting an unparalleled majestic aura. Grand Ancestor, you can't stop me. Su Yan's killing intent surged, swallowing the sky and roaring. Golden ripples rolled from his mouth and nose, like millions of tsunamis reaching the sky. The Grand Ancestor's killing order that swept across the sky suddenly exploded. Su Yan's aura was too fierce. Now, there was only one final hurdle left before he could completely become the strongest monarch. However, his battle strength soared wildly. The complete heavenly embryo released the undying divine power, like an immortal master who had crossed the ancient land, suppressing the universe. Su Yan's bravery was unstoppable. He brought out his strongest battle strength, slashing the epic with his sword and breaking the reincarnation with his saber. A Kuan Peng appeared from the top of his head, and his figure was filled with the power of the Emperor's suppression technique. In an instant, he attacked forward. Boom! A series of trump cards erupted. Su Yan revealed the belief that he was invincible in the current era. He was invincible. Everything became blurry. Su Yan was going berserk, using all his trump cards to unleash his strongest attack. The great ancestor trembled, suffering the attack of lightning. His flesh body was covered in holes, simply having his life force wiped out. Pooh! The grand ancestor was covered in wounds, and his face was unrecognizable. His entire body was about to explode. He roared in grief. Facing Su Yan, who was getting stronger and stronger, he felt powerless in his heart. He wanted nothing more than to borrow the invincible battle strength from the heavens to crush Su Yan. Su Yan stepped on the desolate land, like an emperor respected by the heavens and earth, possessing great prestige and boldness. Dong! The sole of his foot stepped over with unstoppable momentum. It covered the sun, moon, and stars, and suppressed the ruined rivers and mountains. The descent of an emperor shocked all the major races in the immortal world. Su Yan's strength made the world tremble. At this moment, He directly stepped on the Grand Ancestor and looked down on everyone. The Grand Ancestor's body collapsed, and blood flowed endlessly. He was truly miserable. His eyes emitted madness and humiliation. Now, he was being stepped on by Su Yin, and it was difficult for him to make a comeback. He was unwilling to accept this. After all, he wanted to see the ultimate battle, and he wanted to see the future results. Roar! The Grand Ancestor let out a beast-like roar. His declining emperor's origin was burning, and he wanted to compete with Su Yin for supremacy again. He was unwilling to accept his defeat to Su Yin. His blood-stained flesh surged, and he crawled up to fight with Su Yin again. "You have no chance," Su Yin shouted coldly and punched forward. The living beings in the world were stunned. At this moment, Su Yin was too ferocious. His fist struck down, and it was dripping with blood. This strike directly shattered the Grand Ancestor's head, and his remnant body also exploded. A rain of blood poured down, and the rivers and mountains trembled. The death of a living being like the Grand Ancestor caused a bleeding phenomenon. It covered the ruined rivers and mountains, and echoed in the bloody ancestral land of the Celestials. The Grand Ancestor has fallen. The living beings of the Celestials who fled to the remote areas of the immortal world kept roaring. Their eyes were bloodshot, and they were mad with hatred. The three Emperor clans were completely finished. They were dead, injured, and fled. Their fate was broken. The Ancestor Celestial Emperor was just a stone statue. What was the point of suddenly suppressing the Celestial Court? At this moment, Immortal Emperor Zong emitted a terrifying demonic aura. He looked down on the universe and shook the immortal world. Heaven and earth prostrated under his feet. His shadow was terrifying as if it swallowed all light. This scene caused everyone's hearts to tremble in fear. Roar! Su Yin roared, and the aura he emitted was incomparably terrifying. His figure filled the great world, and his killing intent filled the sky. He was full of the majesty of an emperor. The experts in the distant world felt their scalps go numb. At this moment, Su Yin was too glorious. Where he stood, the environment of the immortal world automatically rumbled. The vast space-time of the immortal world surged with Su Yin's power. The Grand Ancestor is dead. The nine-headed bird and the others were completely panicking. Was the three Emperor clans completely finished? There was only one stone statue left. We surrender. A large number of soldiers were in a mess and felt that they were on the wrong side. Annihilation in one battle. The purple Qilin roared. The world in front of them exploded, and the sky was filled with corpses and broken bones. The army of the Immortal World Alliance was not confident, and their morale was greatly damaged. They were no longer qualified to compete with them. In an instant, the Sword Ancestor went crazy. He slashed out with the immortal slaying sword, and his combat power was terrifying. The sky was filled with sword light, and one after another, magnificent and huge. It was huge and sharp to the extreme. The nine-headed bird could not block it, and its heads were chopped off one after another. Kill! The bugle horn sounded, and the army of the Celestial Court pushed forward. Even the experts who had sided with the Celestial Court before joined forces to kill. They wanted to make a contribution and gain the trust of the Celestial Court. The experts in the distant world who were watching the battle felt their hair stand on end. The Immortal World Alliance was completely finished. A large number of emperors fell, and the survivors were incomparably sad. If they had known this would happen, they would not have been fence-sitters. The Celestial Court could not tolerate them at all. They fled in all directions, trying to save their lives. Boom! At this moment, people realized that Su Yan's shadow was even more majestic. His spiritual consciousness surged and pierced through the nine heavens. The order of the heaven-opening scripture was blooming. It wanted to fill the environment of the immortal world to complete the final breakthrough. In fact, to completely stand at the top of the emperors, one had to merge with the environment of heaven and earth. However, during the merging period, the scripture order welcomed the strongest sublimation. However, Su Yin did not respect the great Tao of the immortal world. He walked on his own great Tao, so once he broke through, he had to stand above the environment. However, no matter how terrifying Su Yan's spiritual energy was, the celestial race's primogenitor stone statue controlled the immortal world. The blood-colored environment rumbled, and the heavens wept blood, scattering down a peerless aura, forcibly suppressing Su Yan's breakthrough. How can a stone statue block the overall situation of history? Su Yan angrily rebuked the heavens. He shouted, "The immortal world will be unified, and I will be the master of the immortal world." And suddenly, the primogenitor stone statue's eyes were filled with anger. It was as if the celestial emperor of the immortal world was angry. The sky trembled, and waves of terrifying power suppressed Su Yan. Boom! Suddenly, a black short spear shot out. The Black King wielded the god-slaying spear, and it tore through the river of time, piercing towards the primogenitor stone statue's forehead. "Join hands and kill him," the sword ancestor coldly shouted. The banishing immortal sword was burning so fiercely that it was about to explode. It slashed out one sword ray after another, revealing the extreme sharpness of the sword Tao, and slashed towards the stone statue. Another loud explosion resounded, and a vast energy rain sprinkled down. A heavenly halberd slashed across the sky. The heavenly halberd was simple and heavy. It was the weapon of the celestial race's ancestor god. It emitted boundless power and slashed diagonally at the celestial race's primogenitor stone statue. Get rid of him, and the immortal world will be unified. In a short period of time, the kings of the celestial court erupted with power. One after another, supreme treasures bombarded the source. This situation was too terrifying. The battlefield was reduced to a land of death. The primogenitor stone statue emitted a heaven-devouring fury, and cold lightning shot out in all directions from its eyes. However, it was not its main body that descended into the world, so it encountered the boundless killing calamity. The entire stone statue trembled chaotically as if it was about to explode. It was a shocking scene. The giant Su Yin brandished the world-destroying battle axe and attacked fiercely. In a short period of time, large cracks appeared on the primogenitor stone statue one after another. There was blood flowing. The people of the world saw the stone statue bleeding. It was as if he had truly transformed into a living creature. He emitted a low and deep roar that shook people's souls. It was to the extent that his stone shell actually emitted a shocking life aura. His heart began to beat, shaking heaven and earth. Daesung coughed out blood. The chi and blood of a group of celestial court experts trembled chaotically. This kind of pulsating sound was too powerful. It was like a supreme expert that had hibernated for millions and millions of years, overlooking the immortal world. I can feel it. The primogenitor, celestial emperor, is beginning to revive. The celestial race experts who had fled to a remote area roared. They saw the dawn of hope. There was also an old giant who roared madly. Once he returns, who dares to oppose him? Even a master of the celestial court will most likely be beaten to death. FPZW. Chapter 2167. Immortal Killing Sword, God-Shattering Spear, Heavenart Halberd, Black King Furnace. This was the joint attack of more than 10 great killing weapons. A black hole directly blasted open on the battlefield, all natural laws and order vanishing without a trace. Even the dome of the immortal realm was destroyed, foreshadowing the descent of a great disaster. It was even more cruel than the end of the world, heaven and earth disappearing, turning into a destroyed space-time. How long? Giant Su Yin brandished the realm-destroying axe, unleashing a series of crazy attacks. He had a feeling that something wasn't right, that there was a great problem with the stone statue. It seemed to have developed flesh, human veins. It was to the extent where the most important thing was that it actually had a golden heart. The instant it revived, an extremely terrifying storm was released. Only the most powerful Emperor-level experts could stand still. Even someone as powerful as Long Daesung's body trembled, about to explode. Just how terrifying and unmatched was this? Could it be that an unmatched giant comparable to Dark Emperor revived? Long, the blood-soaked stone creature suddenly erupted, the energy within its body surging, grand to the extreme, as if it ran through the long river of history. It was to the extent where human veins flickered within its stone body, the aura it released becoming a great deal more terrifying. Giant Su Yin was swaying, his eyes widening, releasing a low roar. It's alive, this old monster really is alive. This isn't a simple stone statue at all, but rather the three Emperor clan's ultimate trump card. Long. In that instant, the stone statue's chest rose and fell, the flesh shell blazing, as if an everlasting great sun was burning, blood rushing into the great cosmos. Extremely terrifying power. The great stars in the sky exploded, the world beyond the heavens collapsing, streak after streak of order rushing out from within. This was his Tao fruit surging, interweaving with the supreme natural law order. In a short period of time, the great killing weapons covering the sky trembled violently, and then they all flew out, smashing into the distant mountains and rivers. This king knew it wouldn't be that easy. Black King cursed his bad luck inwardly. He really was about to succeed in ruling the immortal realm. Now, this tattered stone statue seemed extremely sinister, releasing a supreme might. It was a shocking scene. The ancestral stone statue was walking towards revival, as if it turned into a true immortal realm, celestial emperor, its aura matchless, tyrannical in the 9 heavens, 10 earths. Even the vast immortal world was covered in crimson light. The disturbance was too great. Immortal world seemed to have entered an era of bloody calamity. All of the light of glory flew into the ancestral statue. Moreover, immortal world's millions and millions of ancient worlds seemed to be ignited, about to release their essence matter. It's the remains. The face of the big brother entrenched in the celestial court suddenly darkened. This was not a simple stone statue. It was most likely the remains of the celestial emperor of the Xian people. However, it had lost its primordial spirit and only had some physical memories. Zi Qilin and the others were endlessly shocked. What kind of monster was this? How many years had he lived for that his body had turned into stone? Now that it was being slashed by the immeasurable killing tribulation, it stimulated the clay idol so much that it was about to give birth to a body of flesh and blood. The aura it emitted became even more powerful and imposing. This bone is too hard to chew. Big Black roared. Could it be that they were going to give up just like this? That really wasn't worth it. If they didn't take down the celestial realm and suddenly sweep through the dark world, the 3 realms wouldn't be completely unified. Soldiers come. At this time, the eyes of the living stone embryo were ice cold. The 3 emperor weapons that were clashing with the myriad world's cauldron shook violently and produced waves of terrifying vitality. It was as if an ancient life form was awakening. These 3 emperor weapons were refined from his remains. The essence of his flesh and blood exists within the 3 emperor weapons. The big brother's expression was cold. The 3 emperor weapons were bleeding, dyeing the great world red. This kind of blood was quite special. It contained a demonic nature and even temporarily covered the celestial emperor's great Tao of the myriad world's cauldron. In a short period of time, the 3 emperor weapons gradually changed. It was as if they had turned into a living, bleeding life form and directly produced a terrifying resonance with the primogenitor stone statue. They were actually one body, and even the 3 emperor weapons were about to return to the primogenitor stone statue. Once this day came, the most powerful state of the remains would be formed. Unforeseen changes would occur. Suppress. The big brother roared. The myriad world cauldron was only blinded for a short period of time. In an instant, the great Tao of the celestial emperor appeared. Together with the space of the 10,000 realms where the big brother stood, they interweaved with the strongest energy foundation. The myriad world's cauldron's aura grew stronger. It suppressed the three bleeding Emperor weapons. Once the three Emperor weapons merged with the stone body, the consequences would be unpredictable. The cauldron was so huge that it covered the sky. Chaos gushed out of the cauldron. A celestial emperor's body was about to walk out. Unfortunately, the Tao Saint Immortal had already activated the myriad world's cauldron's ultimate power. The celestial emperor's Tao body had walked out to attack the dark world. Hundreds of years had passed, but the celestial emperor's Tao seal had not completely recovered. It could not activate its ultimate power. Even so, it suppressed the three emperor weapons for a short period of time. All living beings sacrifice. Suddenly, the spirit released by the stone body grew stronger and stronger. As it roared, the heavens collapsed and the earth cracked. Gods wept and ghosts wept. The entire celestial world space and time surged with endless laws and order. Billions of ancient worlds erupted at the same time. Ah, no, it was an unbelievable scene. In a vast celestial world, among the billions of ancient worlds. At the same time, countless territories trembled. Large batches of living beings burned themselves. Their life essence flowed in reverse toward the stone body. A group of experts fighting against the celestial court was scared out of their wits. Even the emperors were trembling. Immediately afterwards, someone released a heart-tearing, lung-splitting roar. He discovered that a corner of his race had collapsed, groups of clansmen exploding, turning into human great medicine essence that flowed through the great cosmos towards the stone embryo's life form. No, the entire world roared. An expert roared crazily. He had truly gone mad. Countless people's eyes were about to pop out of their sockets. The stone body had turned into a slaughterer. As its chest rose and fell, billions of living beings turned into human body medicine. They penetrated its body, causing its aura to soar. How ruthless! The Black King sucked in a cold breath. He understood. This bastard was sacrificing the living beings of the celestial world. He did not care even if he killed 99% of them. The Cold Emperor was like the supreme heavens. All living beings were ants to him. They could become powerful nourishment. He treated all living beings as tributes. In reality, the first wave were all weaker creatures. As the suction force from his chest became greater and greater, it would eventually affect saints, immortal kings, and even emperor-level experts. All living beings were like grass, nothing more than fleeting clouds in his eyes. Once he slept for millions of years, the celestial world would flourish again, its population recovering. Spring bamboo after the rain. Why are you all resisting? The emperor was cold. He sensed the great medicines that gathered in the sky, all of them having thoughts of resistance. He was the lord of the celestial world. The entire celestial world was his. All living beings shouldn't resist. It was to the extent where this type of resistance made the emperor's aura become much more terrifying. Regardless of what creature it was, regardless of race, in his eyes, they were all the same. When he was at his weakest, they could become nourishment, tonics. Heaven and earth exploded. Many powerful clans' ancestral lands collapsed into bloody holes. Countless creatures flew out uncontrollably, exploding along the way. Shameful! The big brother roared angrily. Using all living beings as nourishment, this provoked the big brother. His entire body released terrifying killing intent, as if he was an unmatched, great demon king that tore apart the earth. He was going to walk out of the celestial court and fight a bloody battle against the emperor. Roar! All of a sudden, a loud roar exploded. Giant Su Yin rose from the ground in an instant. His body instantly became billions of feet tall, propping up the sky. It was a shocking scene. Giant Su Yin had exploded. His blood was burning with anger. He stretched out his arms and raised the bloody dome. His huge feet crossed the vast land and turned into pillars that supported the sky, suppressing the world. Giant Su Yin was draped in the 10,000 beast battle armor. His body was surrounded by the sea of time, and he wielded the world-destroying battle axe. At this moment, Su Yin was indomitable. The vast blood, celestial world trembled violently. Even the environment was shaking. All living beings in the world screamed miserably. Hundreds of millions of living beings were about to explode into bloody light as they crashed onto the ground. They screamed in fear. Then, they looked at the indomitable giant with tears in their eyes. They screamed, "It's immortal Emperor Zong." Too many people screamed in grief and indignation. The world was burning. At the crucial moment, immortal Emperor Zong stood out and broke the situation in a short time. Back then, immortal Emperor Zong represented the celestial world on the immortal demon battlefield. Now, immortal Emperor Zong wants to become the master of the celestial world. He's definitely willing to fight for the celestial world. Countless people roared. From this moment onward, Su Yin had won the hearts of the celestial world. It was as if billions of living beings were kneeling and worshipping Su Yin. He was like the human emperor and the sovereign emperor. "Old beast, aren't you afraid of retribution?" Su Yin roared. His hair danced like the sea. His peerless figure burned, and his body burned as he suppressed the environment of the celestial world. Killing intent flowed in Su Yan's eyes as he stopped the stone creature's crazy actions. "Retribution? I'm the great Tao. I'm the greatest karma. What retribution is there?" The stone creature was disdainful. His expression was cold and emotionless from the beginning. His cold words swept through the celestial world, causing countless living beings to scream in grief and indignation. In the face of such cruelty, they all felt homeless. "Who dares to stop me?" The stone creature stared coldly at the myriad world cauldron. The next moment, he raised his palm and attacked the giant Su Yin. Boom! However, his words received a response. A blurry and mysterious shadow descended, and a huge crack appeared in the blood-red environment. It was an extremely terrifying scene. A corner of the celestial world's environment collapsed. That huge shadow seemed to be walking in the river of time. It came from a distant region of time and space to this world. Is there really someone? The sovereign emperor sneered as he stared at the incoming shadow. It was too blurry and mysterious. He couldn't see any clues. Even when the Black King opened his heavenly eye, he could only see the order of the laws. It didn't seem like a living being. However, Blackie felt that this old thing looked familiar. Boom! All of a sudden, there was another loud explosion. On the other end of the celestial world's environment, a bronze war spear appeared, instantly collapsing the blood-red environment. This bronze war spear released supreme, killing intent, terrifying enough to pierce through the celestial world. A rain of bronze light scattered down, covering heaven and earth, suppressing the great blood-red world. Vaguely, the sky-covering rain of light gathered together, releasing incomparable fluctuations. It was simply enough to devour the past, present, and future. Everyone in the world was stupefied. The bronze war spear scattered down a rain of light, illuminating a woman. She stepped across the river of time, as if she reincarnated and returned, forming the figure of an empress who looked down on past and present. An enormous figure, a woman who looked down on past and present. This was an extremely terrifying combination. She stepped across the world's reincarnation, as if she returned from reincarnation. Chapter 2168. Two great, unmatched existences descended upon the immortal world, overlooking the boundless great earth, their might shaking the past and present. Were they allies or old friends? The emotions of the kings of the celestial court erupted, seeing the dawn of victory. The two great, unmatched existences' figures were indistinct and illusory, but they exuded an extremely terrifying killing intent. They stared at the clay, embryo, celestial emperor, killing intent surging, overturning rivers and seas. The entire immortal world became extremely silent. Tens of thousands of sects wailed, feeling that the people of the celestial court had arrived. This was truly what everyone wanted. The clay embryo, celestial emperor, was known as the lord of the immortal world. His methods were cruel and tyrannical, making the immortal world uneasy and fearful. Right now, war cries reverberated everywhere. Hoping to see the clay embryo, celestial emperor fall, and usher in a brand new great era. Haha, the clay embryo creature sneered. The rough stone statue produced human veins, surging with exuberant life force. Its hibernating strength gradually recovered, even though the situation that wanted to sacrifice the entire world to him was broken. This clay embryo creature was even more powerful than before. How long? His body shone, illuminating the cosmos' sea of stars. The supreme natural laws and order extended and surged, full of unmatched power, wishing to reform the immortal world's environment, possessing an unmatched foundation. The bronze spear shone, continuously scattering down a rain of bronze light, as if crossing the river of time, pressing over from the end of history. Specks of light scattered down on the woman's figure that looked down on the past and present, making her seem even more supreme. It's her. Su Yan was shocked. Over 100 metal creatures were raising the unmatched empress in the war chariot. Didn't she fall and die? Could it be that she didn't die and was still alive? This indistinct and mysterious empress aura devoured the past and present, transforming all living things in the heavens, creating civilization and order. Moreover, even the bronze spear on her back shone, gushing with supreme natural laws and order, about to kill powerful enemies in an instant. The blood immortal world's environment rumbled. The grand and ancient bronze spear suppressed the environment. At the same time, the enormous figure shone, as if it turned into an eternity between heaven and earth, illuminating the immortal world, releasing millions and millions of strands of golden light. His aura was extremely aged and also extremely terrifying, illuminating the blood immortal world. His figure was like an undying blazing sun, moreover releasing an exceptional domineering aura, as if he was going to suppress a celestial emperor. The fluctuations of the emperor suppression art. Could it be that he's a sleeping giant in the undying heavenly sun? Su Yan was pleasantly surprised. These two were related to him by karma. Su Yan had obtained the supreme Empress Heaven opening spiritual scripture, and even the giant slumbering in the eternal heavenly Sunday, Su Yan had obtained the Emperor Suppression Art. Suppress, suppress, suppress. The majestic heavenly music resounded, as if millions upon millions of mountains were crashing down. Syllables after syllables pressed down on the hearts of the experts. The entire world trembled. The Emperor-level experts were all trembling, the blood and chi within their bodies surging, their Emperor bodies about to collapse. They cried out in horror. What kind of power was this? It was supreme, as if it could suppress the emperors, suppress the past, present, and future. Brother Jintian, Black King roared in excitement. It was Big Brother Jintian. In the bloody and difficult history of the Celestial Court, Jintian was definitely the most terrifying existence before the Tao Celestial Emperor became an invincible giant. The Purple Qilin and the others all released low roars, their eyes widening. They were going crazy with joy, as if they were giants that were unmatched in the great river of time. Jintian, thieving heaven. They were two peerless overlords below the Tao Celestial Emperor, looking down on all living things. They were much more terrifying than Black King and the others, even more terrifying than the Tao Celestial Immortals. They had lived for a much longer time than the first Big Brother who founded the Celestial Court. In short, these two were giants of the Celestial Court. The return of either of them was enough to control the Celestial Court and shake the three realms. Boom! The world trembled violently. The celestial world began to wail. The bloody great world was truly heading towards its end. All the great Tao and order were suppressed. Everyone watched as a giant celestial steel pressed down heavily, covering the celestial world space-time. Jintian, Jintian, Jintian. The heaven-suppressing steel streaked across the sky. This was a heaven-suppressing supreme treasure, different from the bronze spear. These two supreme treasures were supreme treasures of the same level, carrying their orthodoxies and inheritances. Once unleashed to the extreme, it was equivalent to a hand of two great experts pressing down on this place. The bronze spear led the attack, while the heaven-suppressing steel led the suppression. Boom! In an instant, the clay idol rose from the ground, his figure turning into a divine rainbow. He was about to reach the end of the universe. The big brother's expression was cold. He pushed the myriad worlds cauldron, creating a black hole in the universe. The clay idol was striding towards the three emperors' weapons, wanting to merge with his broken body. Unfortunately, this wish was destined to fail. The heaven-suppressing steel pressed down first, filling the great world. Suppress. The heaven-suppressing steel shone, suppressing the celestial world's environment. The steel also became boundless in an instant, covering the outerverse and pressing down heavily on the clay idol. Break! The clay idol roared. His figure was terrifying, overturning rivers and seas. His finger covered the sky as he slashed at the heaven-suppressing steel. His aura was also pushed to the extreme, his body flourishing with divine light. The terrifying giant palm covered the sky and the earth, affecting the past and present. The long river of time appeared, wrapped in an unparalleled emperor's might, crashing down like a tide of destruction. A loud explosion rang out. The clay idol's giant palm collided with the heaven-suppressing steel, producing energy ripples that whistled through the outer world, crashing into the human world, and even affecting the celestial court world. An extremely powerful existence released its battle strength. Billions of supreme laws rushed out from its palm, revealing a peerless and terrifying power that was enough to evaporate the universe's oceans and destroy the great world. How terrifying! The celestial world was shaken. The whole world trembled as if the oceans had exploded. The celestial world seemed to be welcoming destruction. Even large pieces of realm walls came crashing down. It could be called a boundless meteor shower. This was a scene of destruction that made even the emperor's scalps go numb. Immediately after, the empress's blurry figure stood on the bronze spear, tearing apart the firmament with extreme speed. The peerless killing power pierced through the celestial world, enough to pierce through gods and devils. This attack was boundlessly terrifying, leaving large cracks all over the world. Break! The clay idol roared again. One hand reached out to face the heaven-suppressing steel, while the other hand reached out to hack at the bronze spear. At the same time, his body burned fiercely, shooting out billions of great Tao symbols. His body seemed to have turned into a majestic eye of heaven and earth that was rotating, urging the celestial world's environment to shine, about to reform under his supreme emperor might. How long? In the source region, everything became blurry. Nothing could be seen clearly. It was as if the heavens were collapsing, and there was also blood flowing in reverse. Drop after drop, it poured into the 33 layers of heaven. The scene was world-shocking. The outer world exploded, and the entire sky was filled with the luster of destruction. The heaven-suppressing steel and the bronze spear weren't just simple weapons. They also contained the wills of two supreme experts. They attacked together, bombarding the clay idol's body until it was trembling. The web between the thumb and index finger of one hand ruptured, and the palm of the other hand was pierced through. Kill! The clay idol was furious. It was as if a prehistoric giant beast had gone mad. Its body turned into a giant golden bell, rumbling and surging with unimaginable power. It formed a world-destroying flood that bloomed endlessly. The great bell rumbled, the loud noise continuously reaching into the heavens. Countless experts trembled, blood flowing from their mouths and noses. There were also large amounts of creatures that exploded, collapsing into ashes and shattering. This was a world-destroying battle. It continued to burn and erupt, truly able to cripple the celestial world. There were already a few ancient worlds that exploded, and the people everywhere were in a terrible situation. It was too horrible to look at. All of a sudden, the first primordial spirit returned to Su Yan's body. The primordial spirit operated the heaven-opening scriptures order, instantly erupting with the power of heaven opening. Su Yan roared, grasping the celestial world's environment in a short period of time. Moreover, the celestial world's origin laws flowed, forming layer after layer of light screens of order, isolating the energy source that swept out from the battle between the three experts. At the same time, Su Yan's figure rose to the peak of the celestial world's 9 heavens. He turned into an emperor, and it was as if the ancestor of heaven and earth was born. His divine might was great. Roars exploded one after another, causing the entire celestial world to burn and billions of ancient worlds to resonate. At this moment, Su Yan's body and the celestial world's environment became one. He was boundlessly powerful, and his imperial body burned all of his foundation. Breakthrough. Su Yan's black hair danced in the wind. The heaven-opening scriptures order pierced through the celestial world's environment, and the entire celestial world surrounded Su Yan. He tore through the final breakthrough, and his combat strength soared wildly. His figure stood at the peak of the celestial world. In a short period of time, Su Yan completed the breakthrough. However, his path had only just begun. The heaven-opening scriptures order appeared, changing the celestial world's environment. At the same time, his primordial spirit and the celestial world's origin laws merged into one. The black and white chi appeared completely, and they flowed around Su Yan's primordial spirit. It was like the two ancestral dragons of the celestial world were releasing a powerful summoning force, causing the celestial world environment and billions of ancient worlds to merge into one, forming the most terrifying and majestic universe of life in the three worlds. Everyone in the celestial world had an illusion, and they felt that the celestial world was much more majestic and the world was extremely deep. It had completely changed. At the same time, the clay fetus roared in anger, and his cold eyes stared at the black and white chi. He endured the slashes of the heaven-suppressing monument and the bronze spear, and his bleeding hand suddenly reached out, grabbing at the black and white chi. Get lost. I am the master of the celestial world. Su Yan's hair danced wildly, and his roar shook the celestial world. With a wave of his hand, billions of ancient worlds resonated. Billions of palm prints connected the sky, and the celestial world was rotated. At this moment, Su Yan was too powerful. He controlled the celestial world's origin laws, and he became the master of the celestial world. The heavenly fate palm could rotate the heavens, and the celestial world's environment and appearance was displayed with the heavenly fate palm. Billions of palm prints arrived in an instant, and they clashed with the clay fetus giant hand. And the clay fetus was enraged, and his palm shattered the heavens, causing the golden world to tremble. One had to admit that this being was terrifying. He wanted to destroy the environment and completely destroy Su Yan's main body in Yuan Shan. Unfortunately, he was too careless. The heaven-suppressing monument came crashing down, shattering the supreme laws and order in the sky, and pressed down on his spine. The clay fetus roared in grief, and his spine was broken by the pressure. The bronze spear also came and pierced through his chest. This was a killing move, and it wanted to destroy his main body. The dark world still interfered. The big brother's face was gloomy, and from the direction of the dark world, a rotten hand suddenly reached out, penetrating the world, and even avoided the celestial court's environment. In an instant, it grabbed at the black and white chi around Su Yan's Yuan Shun. At the same time, the place where the Tao Saint Immortal was guarding rumbled, and an extremely terrifying being appeared, as if the main body of the celestial world's celestial monarch had returned after crossing the river of time, and his aura was boundless. A shocking change. The dark world interfered, and the place where the Tao Saint Immortal was guarding was in chaos. One after another, giants that lived in myths and legends appeared, and the black and white chi around Su Yan's Yuan Shun caused a shocking change. Chapter 2169. The large rotting hand, its bones visible, reached out from the dark world in an instant. It avoided the celestial court's environment and headed straight for the immortal world. Endless auras of death and destruction covered the heavens' great Tao. The world was dark and een. It was as if they had entered a great age of darkness. Millions and millions of creatures felt their hair stand on end. They felt as if they had fallen into an abyss with no way to escape. This scene was too terrifying. In the end, the Dark Emperor still took action. He definitely couldn't allow the immortal world to fall into the Celestial Court's hands. Otherwise, the Dark World would have no power to reverse the situation. That was because the Dark World would never have imagined that the immortal world's environment would be restored to its most powerful prehistoric state. Once this step was completed, only heaven knew what kind of overlord would be created. Suyin, be careful! The kings of the Celestial Court cried out. This momentarily triggered a great situation that was extremely horrifying. 1. Su Yan's primordial spirit quickly dimmed, as if it had evaporated from the immortal world. The Dark Emperor's actions were thunderous and decisive. He directly pressed down on Su Yan's primordial spirit, wanting to crush his soul body and seize the black and white energies. Within the surging great world of darkness, a giant roar erupted. In an instant, heaven and earth shook, foreshadowing a peerless terror. The big brother went berserk. His gray hair danced about chaotically. His essence, energy, and spirit completely changed. The entire Celestial Court's environment was also rewritten. The land of all ages appeared to surround and protect the big brother. Kill! He roared loudly. His body was clad in the Celestial Emperor battle armor. He was imposing to the extreme as he activated the power of all ages. A peerless power pierced out like lightning. He brandished his Emperor's fist and smashed towards the large rotting hand to stop the Dark Emperor. The large rotting hand was bleeding. This was the Dark Emperor's physical body. It was incomparably terrifying as it attacked. The sea of stars in the heavens was about to collapse, and the great cosmos was about to wither away. When this large hand collided with the big brother's fist, the cosmos beyond became resplendent and overflowed into the heavens. The long river of history appeared and affected both the past and present. Great historical stars reached their limits one after another and were completely extinguished. One could well imagine just how savage this battle was. However, the Dark Emperor was extremely powerful. The large rotting hand grabbed his big brother's fist, and a furious voice sounded from the Dark Realm region. The large hand was limitless, and blood flowed out. It was terrifying to the extreme. Big Bro's body was on the verge of breaking apart. Having suddenly entered the Celestial Court, he was facing an invincible existence, the most ancient and terrifying supreme expert in the entire three realms. Kill! The big brother's eyes widened in anger, and his heavenly monarch battle armor shone brightly. A figure appeared behind him, and his battle prowess skyrocketed. His heavenly monarch fist was also extremely powerful, and it clashed with the Dark Monarch's rotten hand. The space-time between the Dark World and the Celestial Court was full of holes. Time had reached its limit, and all matter was being destroyed. The change of the three realms involved a battle at the transcendent level. Storms surged and wreaked havoc throughout the world. In the place where the Tao Saint Immortals were guarding, there was an unmatched existence that was closing in. It was as if the Celestial Emperor of the Celestial World was moving through the air, moving the river of time, revealing an emperor body that could shake the heavens as it smashed over murderously. Dong! The Tao Saint Immortals waved her white hand forward, and her magic power was boundless. Her strongest battle prowess exploded continuously, and the degree of terror was indescribable. She tried her best to block and resist. Relying on this world, the dreamy woman bathed in the eternal radiance, and all her strength poured out. However, even if it was like this, it was still difficult to suppress the giant that suddenly appeared. Moreover, this individual's figure became much clearer, a figure that was exactly the same as the clay idols. It was like a matchless heavenly emperor, looking down on everything with disdain. Big Bro had no choice but to push the myriad worlds cauldron out, rushing towards the place where the Tao Saint Immortals were guarding. His mood was very heavy. The battle in the depths of the vile earth was definitely extremely cruel, and the battle there could directly affect the three realms. Similarly, the situation in the three realms could most likely affect the depths of the vile earth. This also meant that the destruction of the human world back then was definitely related to the influence of the depths of the vile earth. In short, no one would easily agree to the unification of the three realms. Danger engulfed the three realms. The celestial court's army roared and rushed out of the celestial world, rushing to the borders to guard against the foreign enemies. Big Brother blocked the dark world, and the Tao Saint Immortals fought against the enemies from the depths of the vile earth. At the same time, the three monarch weapons' bleeding corpses had broken free from the suppression of the myriad world cauldron and were infinitely close to the heavily injured clay idol. Suppress, suppress, suppress. The heavenly sound of the great Tao resounded, and it was the will of the heaven-suppressing monument. The celestial monument shone brightly, and the great Tao immortal patterns of the heavens formed a huge suppress word. The heaven-suppressing monument rushed towards the three monarch weapons, and the two terrifying weapons clashed together. Boom! At the same time, the bronze spear shone brightly, and sometimes it turned into a proud great empress, and sometimes it turned into a bronze spear. The clay idol was heavily injured. Its spine was broken, and its chest was also pierced through. The great empress charged over and began a direct battle. This murderous weapon carried the great empress will, and its murderous aura shook the river of time, reflecting the phenomenon of the withering of the heavens. The battle was extremely intense. At this moment, Su Yan's aura became stronger and stronger. The celestial world trembled, and blood surged, covering the entire world. Su Yan is about to succeed. Black King and the rest led the army out to Su Yan's place of breakthrough. His Yuan spirit and the environment merged, and the black and white chi circled around his Yuan spirit, urging the environment of the celestial world to return to its most prosperous era. Some of the old monsters who had lived for countless years in the celestial world were shocked. The heaven and earth welcomed a great change, and the world seemed to be powerful and boundless. The huge life stars were reformed, and they all felt that the path was wider and the path of breakthrough was easier. Was this the prehistoric heaven and earth? The world didn't know what the black and white chi were, but they felt that the heaven and earth had changed because of Su Yan. Auspicious signs were born, and great fortune gathered in the celestial world. Visible to the naked eye, many broken worlds were reformed, and the shattered sky was healed. Suddenly, the broken stars began to regain their vitality, and the extinguished suns began to shine again. Oh my God! The whole world trembled, and everyone exclaimed in shock. The scene was too shocking. Had Su Yan turned into a god of creation? Had he become the great lord of the celestial world? In short, the current Su Yan was too powerful. In the strongest emperor's domain, he continued to be powerful and glorious. His flesh and blood released a vast amount of blood energy, covering the space-time of the celestial world. His body was extremely powerful, and the great fortune of the celestial world was gathered to nourish his emperor body. With a raise of his hand, the celestial world trembled, and 10,000 worlds shone. Following Su Yan's emperor body, it began to shine as if he had turned into the number one emperor of the celestial world. It was also as if he had gathered the power of heaven and earth and turned into a celestial emperor. At the same time, Su Yan's Yuan spirit was solemn, divine, and majestic. The order of the heaven-opening scripture bloomed and interweaved, merging with the environment of the celestial world. He saw the vast path, and time seemed to have passed countless tribulations. He sat and watched the origin of the celestial world, destruction, reconstruction, perfection, and prosperity. This experience was too complicated, and it was difficult to describe it clearly. Countless years seemed to have passed in the blink of an eye, and he accumulated a boundless foundation and cultivation. He was still looking at the sky, but he had a completely different experience. He felt that the heaven-opening scripture had a lot of flaws. The current immortal Emperor Zhang's cultivation and vision were completely different. He was able to come up with a lot of ideas within an instant. Thus, he was able to perfect the scripture. Su Yin knew he still needed to accumulate more knowledge. That being said, he had already completed the most important path. He only needed to accumulate more knowledge in the future to perfect his path. The celestial world gradually changed. The magnificent world was complete, as if billions of ancient realms had merged into one to protect Su Yin. The whole world was filled with Su Yan's aura. It was unparalleled, and it was suppressing everyone's heart. A peerless ruler had come out of seclusion. His presence shook the world and looked down at the vast universe, as if he had become the ruler of the heavens. Everyone had the urge to kneel down and worship the ruler of the celestial world. Kill. The creature was enraged. It was the place where he achieved the Tao, but Su Yin had taken over the celestial world. His seal and the pulse of the great Tao of the celestial world were triggered too. He was about to become the ruler of the celestial world. Bang! The battle was terrifying. Blood scattered across the sky. The bronze spear was stained with blood, cracks, and flaws. Even the Supreme Empress was a little blurry. She looked like she was about to vanish, but her murderous intent was even more terrifying. The creature was covered in cracks and bloody holes. It was on the verge of exploding. He was not willing to give up. He unleashed a powerful soul ripple, trying to influence the celestial world and stop it. However, he could no longer do it. The celestial world had changed. The whole place was filled with Su Yan's presence of life. He was like the great Tao of the heavens, controlling the celestial world to resist the pressure from the creature's primordial spirit. I am the ruler of the celestial world. Su Yan's words were enforced. His presence devoured the celestial world. His figure was emitting a golden glow. The great Tao of the celestial world was pulsating, and billions of ancient realms were moving along with him. From that moment onward, the various tribes, factions, and factions in the celestial world bowed and greeted immortal Emperor Zhang. It was history that could no longer be reversed. Su Yin has done it. The celestial world is filled with his presence. Bao Kai was overwhelmed with emotions. Immortal Emperor Zhang had become the ruler of the celestial world. The unification of the three realms was more than half completed. In the future, as long as they could take down the Dark World, the three realms would be unified, and they could rebuild the environment and order of the three realms. The world was in an uproar. Everyone looked at immortal Emperor Zhang. His divine might was unparalleled. He wielded the world-destroying axe and slashed at the creature. This strike was too powerful. With the environment of the celestial world as the layout, it blasted out a destructive law and order that struck the creature. Pooh! He coughed out blood. His body was riddled with holes, and his arm was directly sliced off by the world-destroying axe. He couldn't block it anymore. The bronze spear pierced through his chest once more, piercing his heart. His life source was greatly damaged, and his aura was extremely weak. Bastard! The creature roared. The three realms is just a pond. The historical situation is outside the three realms. A temporary victory is nothing. In the future, all of you will be wiped out. Unfortunately, the future is not something you can control. Su Yin laughed coldly and slashed out with the world-destroying axe once more. Ant, the creature hissed. I hope you can live until that day and see what kind of era the future will be. Boom! The world-destroying axe was already in front of him. It was extremely difficult for him to resist. He was already weakened, and a huge crack appeared on his body. The bronze spear pierced forward and pierced through the creature's forehead. This strike achieved great destruction, obliterating the creature's primordial spirit imprint. Moreover, the creature's life imprint was completely destroyed, turning into fragments all over the ground. From now on, the three Emperor clans no longer had any foundation to threaten the celestial world. At the same time, the three Emperor weapons disintegrated. The heaven-suppressing steel was directly broken, turning into three broken artifacts that couldn't be reassembled. Even if they reassembled, there was no meaning. The celestial world had already changed hands. The bronze spear spilled blood and turned into a supreme great empress. She looked at Su Yin and opened her mouth, wanting to say something. Chapter 2170. What do you want to tell me? Su Yin asked. The empress seemed to want to speak to him. The supreme empress formed by the battle spear was dreamy and illusory. She represented her spiritual will in the battle and bought precious time for the immortal world to change. Her expression was a little complicated. She sighed softly and did not say what she wanted to say. Su Yin felt that she knew something that should be very important. Su Yin wanted to ask, but the woman's figure gradually blurred. She turned into sparkling light rain and was about to disappear. Farewell. A soft voice engulfed Su Yan's heart. It was like an endless thunderbolt had struck his heart. Su Yan lost his composure and lost control of his emotions. She had died long ago. She was just a remnant of her will. Could it be that she was killed by the original body of the mud fetus? Come back, Su Yin shouted, urging the immortal world to boil. Boundless origin waves surged toward the supreme empress' blurry figure. Unfortunately, she was destroyed too quickly. Her figure completely disappeared, leaving behind only a blood-stained bronze battle spear. This weapon had some cracks. It had almost shattered in the battle, and it fell in front of Big Goldie. The latter was in a daze. In fact, when the Supreme Empress walked toward the immortal world, Big Goldie's emotions were very complicated. He felt that this woman was the creator of their lineage, the true ancestor. The Supreme Empress disappeared. The weapon was handed over to Big Goldie, to this metal creature that was forged from the essence of the Dipper. Roar! Su Yin roared in grief. His black hair fluttered. His eyes were wide open, trying to find something in the world. Could it be that this stunning empress had fallen, just like that? If she had not participated in this battle, it would have given rise to unpredictable changes. Immortal Emperor Zong wanted to repay her, but he could not defy the heavens. Woo-woo! Big Goldie suddenly cried, because it captured the destruction of the world from the bronze battle spear. It captured a corner of the calamity that befell the human world. Even someone as powerful as the Supreme Empress had died in battle. In the past, that kind of battle in the mortal world was unimaginable. The mortal world was beaten until it was crippled, and the uncanny craftsmanship sect master was killed. Could the earthly immortal ancestor still be alive? Even Barry the Heavens might not be able to return. Big Goldie's mood was incomparably unbearable. His old master couldn't come back. Maybe he was just like the Supreme Empress. Only a broken corpse was left. Tai Baokai didn't know how to comfort Big Goldie. His thoughts were simple. He followed Barry the Heavens and guarded his abode for billions of years, enduring endless loneliness. He was God's most loyal guard. No one could change or replace his position in Barry the Heavens' heart. From the beginning to the end, Big Goldie was certain that Barry the Heavens was still alive and that he would definitely be able to return one day. Now, the perseverance in his heart was about to collapse. Big Goldie lost control of his mind and sobbed like a wounded beast. History will not repeat itself. Su Yin clenched his fists, his eyes exuding a strong conviction. Was the Three Realms really a small pond? The historical situation outside the Three Realms directly affected the rise and fall of the Three Realms, as well as the survival of all living beings. One day, I will be strong enough to stop them. Murderous intent surged in Immortal Emperor Zhang's eyes, sending out a terrifying conviction that shook the entire immortal realm. Murderous intent surged. As the master of the immortal realm, he exuded a strong will that affected the heavens, the earth, the rivers, and the mountains. His deep voice reverberated in all dimensions. The immortal realm situation was set. The Dark Emperor's rotting hand gradually withdrew. There was no turning back. The immortal realm situation had taken shape. Even the worlds where Tao Saint Immortals had been invaded by foreign enemies gradually returned to silence. From this moment on, the celestial court was at its peak. Its might shook the three realms. The human realm, the immortal realm, and the core of the immortal realm all fell into the hands of the celestial court. The grand situation had taken shape. The gates to the dark world were tightly shut, as if it had turned into a purgatory of wretched earth. It was the only place in the three realms that the Celestial Court hadn't attacked yet. Kill! The Celestial Court's army returned and charged towards the immortal realm. They bathed the world in blood and slaughtered everywhere. Groups after groups of races walked towards the destruction of the immortal realm. One after another, the experts hiding at the edge of the immortal realm were killed. The bloody massacre of the new era of the immortal realm continued day after day. Blackie and the other experts returned from the depths of the Three Realms mountain and stepped into the immortal realm. The heaven-suppressing monument floated between the heavens and the earth. The three pieces of the monument had lost all their luster. However, it was still a rare material that could be used to forge supreme treasures. Even the mud fetus body was still there. Its life imprint had been erased. In the future, it could be used to forge the supreme treasures of the immortal realm together with the three Emperor's artifacts. Blackie King's heart was heavy. He took control of the heaven-suppressing monument and exuded a strong spiritual will to communicate with the monument. What did you say? Blackie was in a bad mood. Its body was trembling and its tiger eyes were wide open. There were tears in its eyes. Brother Blackie, what's wrong? Xing Tian and the others' hearts trembled. They had a bad premonition. Blackie's emotions were very unstable. Its huge body was trembling. Although it was trying its best to suppress its emotions, it still emitted a strong sense of sadness. Su Yin sighed softly. The supreme giant sleeping in the eternal heavenly sun did not come out to fight. This meant that he might have fallen, just like the supreme great empress. No! Blackie roared. Its chest heaved up and down violently. It cried out loud, revealing its true feelings. This was the strongest giant of the Celestial Court. How could it fall? How could it only leave behind a remnant will? Was the enemy really that terrifying? The heaven-suppressing monument told Blackie that heaven-suppressing had fallen for a very, very long time. Only a remnant was left. No! Blackie King was agitated. He was still unwilling to believe that the master of the Celestial Court left the myriad worlds and stepped into the human world, then the immortal realm and the dark realm. The reason why he left back, then, was because heaven-suppressing and thieving heaven were in danger. With Tao Celestial Emperor's power and prosperity, could it be that heaven-suppressing was in danger? In fact, the heaven-suppressing monument told Blackie that Tao Celestial Emperor placed heaven-suppressing's body in the eternal heavenly sun in hopes of reviving him one day. Tens of millions of years had passed, but heaven-suppressing had not woken up. One of the strongest giants of the Celestial Court has fallen. The upper echelons of the Celestial Court expressed their sorrow, causing the heavens to weep blood. The influence was too terrifying. Did heaven-suppressing fall? This was the most terrifying Overlord. If he died, would thieving heaven be able to survive? This meant that Tao Celestial Emperor's predicament was much crueler than they expected. Take us there, quick! I don't believe it. Blackie climbed up. He would not believe that heaven-suppressing had fallen without seeing heaven-suppressing's body. Boom! The heaven-suppressing monument glowed and opened a path towards the eternal heavenly Sunday. Su Yan's heart was heavy. They were back at the same place, inside the eternal heavenly Sunday. They saw a sleeping supreme god. With Su Yan's cultivation, he could clearly see this sleeping person. One had to admit that Tao Celestial Emperor was very powerful. Back then, when heaven-suppressing died in battle, Tao Celestial Emperor forcefully activated his vitality and placed him inside the eternal heavenly sun to nourish him. His heart still had vitality and never stopped moving. Heavenly Eye, Black King roared, and a vertical eye opened on his forehead. It shot out reincarnation light towards heaven-suppressing's body. He tried to search for a remnant soul, but Blackie couldn't find a single remnant soul, even after searching for 108,000 times. Black King wept. Heaven-suppressing's fall would be the greatest loss of the Celestial Court. Only one lingering will was left. It would rather die than to see heaven-suppression fall to the ground. Only its existence could provide greater help in the future. Black King was in a terrible mood as his hair fluttered in the wind. His body has a certain life imprint. Su Yin suddenly said, the 9 transformations creation pill can't help him reforge his Yuan spirit. No hope. Black King lowered his head and looked a little old. He cried out in sorrow. Not a single remnant soul is left. How can he recreate his true self? No hope. Heaven suppressing can't come back. He can't. The kings of the celestial court were in a terrible mood. That was a supreme existence, second only to Tao, celestial emperor. He has a remnant will. Su Yin suddenly thought of the chaos giant and said, the immortal imperishable scripture might be able to recreate his remnant will. Blackie calmed down with a heavy expression. It had cultivated the immortal imperishable scripture. This scripture was naturally world-shaking, even more terrifying than Tao, celestial emperor's immortal mending technique. Perhaps it could really be immortal when cultivated to the extreme. But the problem was that the immortal imperishable scripture wasn't complete at all. It lacked the final profundity of the scripture. In fact, if this scripture could be completely formed, what kind of scripture would it be? And what kind of giant was the chaos giant? The situation of the Supreme Empress was similar to the chaos giant. If the immortal imperishable scripture could be fully deduced and combined with the 9 transformations creation pill, the 2 supreme giants might be revived. Was there really hope for this scripture to be completely deduced? Blackie sighed. With the profound level of this scripture, it had already caused the universe's original order to be obliterated. Su Yin also knew that the hope was slim, but it was better than having no hope at all. Although Su Yin refined the chaos giant and made it into his own clone, the clone's growth, the hope was even lower. Big Goldie suddenly quivered and said, I heard from Elder Heaven that the ancestor of Earth Immortals controlled the soil of Earth Immortals. Legend has it that this soil is a creation product born in the era of creation. Put a stock of medicine in it, and it won't take too long to grow into a sovereign medicine. Blackie clicked his tongue and stared with his bell-sized eyes. What kind of soil was so heaven-defying? The soil of Earth Immortals was the most precious treasure of the ancestor of Earth Immortals. Not a single grain of soil had been passed down in the outside world. Su Yin recalled the soil in the Tao Palace, but he quickly shook his head. That pile of soil wasn't the soil of Earth Immortals. Su Yin and Blackie took action. They worked together and turned the human realm upside down more than a dozen times. They didn't find the cave of the ancestor of Earth Immortals. Instead, they dug out many prehistoric ruins. The harvest was very rich, and they dug out some rare great medicines that might become sovereign medicine. The ancestor of Earth Immortals created the mystic 9 forms. If this person's cave is really hidden, there's most likely no hope of finding it. Su Yin suddenly said, if CU and the human emperor's orthodoxy completely fused, he would be the master of the human realm. He might be able to find the cave of the ancestor of Earth Immortals. Chapter 2171. Immortal Emperor Zong looked down at undying heavenly domain. This vast world used to be at its peak. Mortal Emperor's orthodoxy was passed down to the world, establishing the Grand Tao path. He was the true ruler. Now his son, Su Siu, was floating at the peak of undying heavenly domain's Grand Tao. In terms of time, it was a long time. They could still afford to wait. The life force in suppressing celestial body was not extinguished. They could still wait. Undying heavenly domain will prosper and recover in the future. Blackie said softly, in the core of the incomplete mortal world, Mortal Emperor's Grand Tao was constantly being released as it fused with Su Siu. The environment of this world was constantly expanding. The geography also changed a lot. It was believed that after a long time, the core of the mortal world would recover to its peak. However, the prerequisite was that Su Siu could really grow to this step. Heaven's chosen. Su Yin chuckled. This sentence made the depressed Big Gold feel better. He was looking forward to Su Siu's rise. He had the best cultivation environment and grasped the strongest orthodoxy. It was equivalent to obtaining the legacy of mortal emperor. Su Yin and Blackie joined forces to go to the space where the Supreme Empress was. They did not enter this world and only observed it from afar. The most important thing was the 9 Revolutions creation pill. It used the 3 realms flower as the main ingredient. It must be concocted. However, before that, the 3 realms must be unified. Boom! 3 days later, Su Yin and Blackie joined forces and moved the undying heavenly sun to the core world of the celestial court. This majestic sun was steaming with endless yang qi. It had become the brightest sun that illuminated the core world of the celestial court. Su Yin returned to the immortal world. His figure strode across the great world, walking on the peak of the 9 heavens. His black hair draped over his shoulders. His eyes were deep and unfathomable. He involuntarily exuded an unparalleled heavenly might. The heaven and earth trembled. An ancient world rumbled and shook. All the living beings were trembling. Immortal Emperor Zong. All creatures bowed down in worship, the immortal kings of great sects even kneeling down. This was divine might that was difficult to resist, as if ants were facing a giant dragon, feeling heartfelt reverence. Su Yan's might was not only terrifying, it even resonated with the great Tao of this ancient realm, producing auspicious signs and auspicious omens. It was incomparable. This was the might that belonged to the Lord of an immortal realm. Waves of shock rolled in their minds as they recalled the events from several thousand years ago. Back then, Su Yin was only a Daesong expert. He climbed the first mountain and participated in the great war of immortal and devil. He was crowned as the emperor in the imperial city. Although that period of time was short, Su Yin was extremely glorious. He slept for 1,000 years and once again ascended to the immortal realm. He ridiculously grasped the greater environment of the immortal realm. After thousands of years, the immortal world had a change of master. The 3 emperor clans were destroyed, and immortal Emperor Zong became the master of the immortal world. We pay our respects to immortal Zong. The creatures of the ancient realm shouted loudly. Their voices rumbled and spread through space. Su Yan's figure crossed space and merged with the greater environment of the immortal world. He couldn't help but emit a majestic heavenly might that pressed down on the surrounding ancient realms and then spread to the distant world. It's immortal Zong. The entire world was shocked. The world was filled with an extremely terrifying grand might. Su Yan's figure stood at the peak of the immortal world, his aura unparalleled. At the same time, the various ancient races and some of the flourishing great sects found it difficult to calm down. Even with the isolation of the Great Protective Formation, Su Yan's might still came pressing down from all directions. It was like millions of heavy hammers smashing into their ancestral court. They were terrified and uneasy. The immortal world had a change of master, and the chaos of war had been quelled. Something major would definitely happen next. No one knew how immortal Zong would manage the immortal world or how he would establish order. In short, a great change was about to happen. Some old monsters didn't know about this historical change. They started to tremble involuntarily because they realized that Su Yin was too powerful. He had just become the strongest emperor, but Su Yin could merge with the greater environment of the immortal world and obtain unparalleled combat strength. Some people felt that there would be a great change soon. However, Su Yin had been silent for 10 years. His figure stood at the peak of the great Tao of the immortal world. His aura was majestic, and his divine might was unparalleled. He seemed to have turned into the eternity of the immortal world, a divine lamp that illuminated all living beings and the immortal world. His figure was everywhere. Some old giants felt that after 10 years of settling down, Su Yin was stronger than before, but they couldn't say for sure. On the contrary, the 10 years of silence had subtly comforted the various races. They were worried that Su Yin would use thunderous means to rule the various races of the immortal world. It's easy to get lost here, Su Yin muttered. 10 years of settling down felt like thousands of years. He woke up. His eyes were deeper, and his shadow was even more terrifying. This was the greater environment of the immortal world. Su Yin merged with the greater environment day by day. His cultivation speeds surpassed those of the same realm by a large margin. It was difficult to calculate with common sense. After 10 years of settling down, he felt that his body was exceptionally strong and exuberant. Of course, the most important thing was that his primordial spirit had changed. He sensed a peculiar divinity that originated from the living beings of the immortal world. It was like a special power of faith that gathered day and night. Drifting in his primordial spirit, his soul was covered in immortal divine light, and with a whistle, it was about to tear the universe apart. This also caused the soul chi between Su Yan's brows to surge like a tsunami. The power of faith of all living beings. Su Yan frowned. His primordial spirit could see through the world with a single thought. The power of faith that filled the sky was like an ocean, one after another. However, the more he absorbed, the more distracting thoughts he had. Was it good or bad? Su Yan pondered. His figure didn't move. Another 10 years passed. His primordial spirit had undergone a certain change. It was indestructible and filled with immortal divinity. It was exceptionally powerful and ridiculous. However, it seemed to bear the weight of karma. His thoughts weren't clear, and he was easily affected. Su Yan frowned. Cold lightning shot out from his eyes. He wanted to raise his hand and cut off this unknown karma. However, he stopped. He left the immortal world to seek advice from his big brother. He believed that his big brother had encountered the same problem as him. The master of a world enjoys the worship of all living beings and the fortune of a world. The big brother smiled. You will gain a lot. In the coming days, you will become stronger very quickly. However, you will have to pay a price. What price? Su Yan frowned. Karma. The big brother explained to Su Yan, you need to protect all living beings. There are gains and losses. It isn't easy to be the head of the family. Child, your path has just begun. Don't rush for success. Take it step by step. Don't cultivate crazily for power. Some karma isn't something you can bear now. In recent years, Su Yan was indeed a little impatient. Celestial Emperor Zong felt that the burden on his shoulders was getting heavier and heavier. Tao Heaven Emperor definitely had something important to tell him. However, until now, Su Yan still wasn't able to decipher the golden paper. What kind of secrets were hidden within? I will take it step by step. Su Yan sucked in a deep breath and asked, what is a transcendence path? His body's functions were released. It was really strong and prosperous. Of course, Su Yan was still a distance away from the peak of Emperor Realm. However, with the environment of the celestial world, this path wasn't slow at all. Su Yan raised his hand and brought the chaos giant body over for the big brother to take care of. What a strong life form. What a miracle. The big brother was moved. He looked at the huge treasure in the chaos giant's body. Its body was like the universe. It had an ocean of God power that was unimaginable. The big brother waved his hand, and the two of them walked towards the world where Tao Saint Celestial was. Big brother, why did you name me Su Yan back then? Su Yan suddenly laughed. Your life is filled with calamities. Hence, you were named Yan. The big brother laughed out loud. His name was given to him by the big brother. It had been 1,000,000 years since then. Tao Saint Celestial was also shocked by the chaos giant's body. The life form that broke out of the shell had a huge origin. She looked at the treasure in the chaos giant's body and exclaimed, this person is only one step away from transcendence. However, how can the step be taken so easily? This person has probably cultivated for countless years and still hasn't defied the heavens. Tao Saint Celestial had a certain understanding of the transcendence path. She had even walked a part of it. Back then, Tao Heaven Emperor had been strong and prosperous in this world. She felt that Tao Heaven Emperor had truly stepped onto the transcendence path that day. In fact, this Tao Celestial Emperor had even walked through it while leaving the general environment. The big brother nodded and agreed with Tao Saint Celestial's view. Back then, Tao Heaven Emperor used the celestial quartz environment to become extremely strong and could only be called a quasi-transcendence. At the same time, the big brother felt that the Transcendence Path could be named after the Paramount Realm. Tao, Saint Celestial, couldn't say what conditions one needed to reach the Paramount Realm. How could it be so easy to pass? Back then, Tao Heaven Emperor sat cross-legged in this world for 3,000 years. In the end, he transformed and became extremely strong. Unfortunately, Tao Heaven Emperor left in a hurry and didn't leave behind any clues about this realm. Or maybe this clue couldn't be described in words. Perhaps everyone had to walk their own path of supremacy. Suyan's heart was heavy. Tao Heaven Emperor had become even more terrifying than the day he attacked the dark world. He walked on this path and left in a hurry. He hadn't returned for a long time. What kind of enemy did he encounter? Was there a group of paramount beings outside the three realms? But one thing was for sure. The enemy was even more terrifying than Dark Emperor. Suyin, don't give yourself too much pressure. The big brother said softly, go to your own things. Your emperor's path hasn't reached its limit yet. Suyin nodded and disappeared in a flash. Half a month later, an extremely vast aura swept across the immortal world. The process caused a huge commotion. The imperial city shone brightly. Immortal Emperor Zong stood at the peak of the imperial city and announced to the world, we're going to be crowned as an emperor. I knew that there would be a day like this. The experts who followed the celestial court back then would most likely be from the Emperor clan. A new era is coming. The immortal world is going to welcome a new era. The world was shaken and the sects were in an uproar. A huge event that shook the immortal world began on this day. The immortal world had been peaceful for 20 to 30 years. At this moment, Immortal Emperor Zong announced to the world that he was going to be crowned as an Emperor clan. Slash, 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 a deep voice exploded. Suyin stood in the imperial city and waved the world-destroying axe. One after another, the dazzling axe light cut through the great world and slashed toward the immortal world. Suyin wanted to cut off a part of the immortal world's fate and open up the creation grotto heaven. He wanted to bless the old generals who followed him back then and give them an explanation. Suyin wanted to reopen the immortal old court and supervise the world. Immortal Emperor Zong wanted to refine the immortal world's #1 treasure and stabilize the immortal world's fate. FPZW. Chapter 2172. A new era has arrived. All you have to live well and enjoy your old age. Phoenix King roared, her eyes red. She waved her palms, shattering a sealed world. Too many old and frail soldiers crawled out from inside. They were in a daze. They had all been sealed for a very long time. A few heavily injured generals who were about to die walked out. When they saw Emperor Phoenix King, tears streamed down their faces as they howled. When they heard about the unification of the immortal world, their emotions surged. They had lived to this moment and saw the new scene of the immortal world. They had no regrets, even if they suddenly passed away. Rumble. The entire Emperor's city rumbled. Huge war tunnels opened one after another. Endless vicious weapons rushed out, roaring and shouting, venting the emotions in their hearts. A new era had begun. The Emperor's city was extremely glorious. Such boldness. The experts of the 10,000 sects cried out in alarm. They really didn't expect Immortal Emperor Zong to use such a method to create a supreme, sacred land. The immortal world welcomed a great change. Suyin used the world-destroying axe to cut off the great fate of the immortal world. The vast world's essence sharply decreased. The fate that was cut off was too great. Many ancient worlds dimmed. They needed a long time to develop before they could recover. Purple light billowed and bloomed, crossing the universe and the river of time. Everywhere it passed, the eyes of the experts of the 10,000 sects turned red. If they could enter and cultivate, they would obtain great benefits. Unfortunately, this was destined to have nothing to do with them. Some people envied the Starry Sky Emperor race. In the past, they had quite a bit of enmity with Suyin. However, in the Battle of the Three Realms battlefield, the Starry Sky Emperor race sent out all their troops. The casualties were especially heavy, and their foundation was greatly damaged. However, This race's choice was correct. In the future, this race would continue to be glorious and prosperous. They would continue to pass on their inheritance and would definitely become stronger in the future. At the same time, the Emperor's city rumbled. The Sea of Origin laws passed through the Great World. They gathered above the Emperor's city, forming a vast energy torrent. It was terrifying enough to kill an Emperor powerhouse. Open the Emperor Palace. Su Yin roared towards the sky. His palms pushed forward, operating the vast laws and order in the sky. He operated the vast origin of the heavens. This was a vast project, a grand event that shook the world. It was going to nurture the great medicine of the heavens. Millions and millions of soldiers cried out, immediately receiving an extremely terrifying baptism. The divine force within their bodies flourished greatly, many experts breaking through the bottleneck of their cultivation realms. A large number of old and frail soldiers had regained much of their vitality, and the heavily injured soldiers who were on the verge of death had also recovered. After all, this was the great karmic luck of the immortal dimension. It contained boundless quintessence, and it could be said to be a rare, immortal herb. It was distributed without end and contained the energy of the entire immortal dimension. So it was obvious exactly how magnificent it was. I have to say, the immortal world has been accumulating for countless years. Its energy foundation is much stronger than the other worlds. The troops from the celestial court were astonished. Similarly, this method was heaven-defying. Once it was used, the energy of the other worlds in the celestial realm would decrease sharply. Su Yin wanted to build the supreme Emperor Palace and nurture batches of experts. Boom! Gigantic palaces appeared one after another, gushing with unparalleled waves of fortune. It was as if they were the immortal world's palaces that nurtured emperors. The aura they exuded was peerless, and the origin energy was vast and endless. They were nurtured by seizing the fortune of heaven and earth. The 10 great palaces intertwined with dragons and phoenixes, gushing with purple chi and surrounded by great fortune. They accompanied the vast immortal world's quintessence as they descended, drowning the entire imperial city. The immortal world had changed, and it was becoming more and more terrifying. The imperial city was the core world, and the titles of billions of ancient worlds were abolished. They were collectively known as the East, South, West, and North regions. The 10 great palaces were so big that they were boundless, and they could be called 10 vast worlds. Su Yin used his supreme divine ability to connect the 10 great palaces into one, forming a vast space of the heaven realm. He also used the mystic 9 escape technique to organize the sun, moon, and stars and the appearance of the universe. This period of time took a total of 3 months. A huge world began to form, rising and falling at the peak of the 9 heavens, gushing out the boundless quintessence of the immortal world. It was filled with great fortune fluctuations. Su Yin named this place the Heavenly Palace. After a long period of accumulation, the quintessence of the Heavenly Palace would become more and more vigorous and powerful, enough to satisfy the breath of the strongest emperors. After all, the Mystic 9 escape technique was too powerful. It located the immortal world's dragon vein, changed the direction of the heaven and earth, and created the strongest space of the immortal world, where thousands of races coexisted. He's crowned emperor. The entire world was in an uproar. The heavenly palace was formed. Immortal Emperor Zong towered in the very depths, his words becoming law. Syllables tore through the immortal world, great earth one after another, crushing towards the great clans. The Phoenix King and the others were all conferred emperor clans, and the Celestial Court's 6 elders were no exception. An extremely terrifying, flourishing age was formed, giving birth to great fortune, a new atmosphere. In a massive immortal world, a few old monsters, old experts who had lived for endless years, all sighed towards the heavens. None of this had anything to do with them. Once the new structure was formed, as time flowed on, the immortal world would completely change. The heavenly palace and Emperor clans reigning supreme. Strange, why didn't Spacetime Emperor obtain an Emperor clan title? Someone said softly, feeling puzzled. The grandiose crowning ceremony continued for 10 days and 10 nights, and only then did it end. The heavenly palace was formed, the atmosphere flourishing, crushing towards the great earth of the immortal world. It was majestic and boundless, its might shaking the heavens. Imperial City has changed its name. Someone cried out in alarm. Imperial City was located under the heavenly art, the energy exuberant and abundant. Millions and millions of troops resided within Imperial City. Now, Imperial City had changed its name. Immortal Emperor Zong used an enormous axe to carve the words Immortal Elder Academy. The entire world cried out. Immortal Elder Academy's history had existed for too long, disappearing after several thousand years. Now, Immortal Emperor Zong reopened Immortal Elder Academy. Spacetime Emperor is the Lord of Immortal Elder Academy, ruling over the immortal world. The entire world was shocked. This was a result no one expected. Immortal Elder Academy became the most powerful institution in the immortal world, ruling over the great emperor clans of the immortal world, revered by the entire world. How could Su Yin know how to manage the world? Spacetime Emperor was the most suitable. He understood the immortal world extremely well, also somewhat of virtue and prestige in the immortal world. If this position was given to Spacetime Emperor, immortal world would continue to prosper in the future. How long? 3 days later, the old brother and Su Yin joined hands, opening up a passage between the two realms. At the same time, a giant space-time passage was opened in the human realm, leading to outer space. Gradually, the outer cosmos formed 3 spatial passages, interweaving together, covered in endless natural laws and order. When the dark world attacks, it will be the time for the 3 realms to return to one. Su Yan's eyes blossomed with divine splendor. This day was definitely not too far away. The 3 realms would return to the core, and only then would the Celestial Court complete the unification of the 3 realms. The curtains fell on the great battle. The 3 realms were no longer at war. The Dark World would not take the initiative to invade. Black King and the others all went into seclusion, wanting to reach a higher level of enlightenment. Originally, the kings of the Celestial Court were prepared to dispatch an army to attack the Dark World, complete the unification. No one doubted the Dark Emperor's strength, but the current Celestial Court was too flourishing. Once the order was issued, endless vicious soldiers would slaughter their way out to join the battle. However, the old brother directly refused. The situation in the immortal world had already triggered serious consequences. The final struggle for supremacy in the vile earth had begun. If they dispatched troops to attack the Dark World, it would definitely trigger an even more terrifying disaster. This might very well involve the depths of the vile earth, where there were too many uncertain factors, so they couldn't be too hasty. The 3 realms battle of geniuses has begun. First, we'll select from the major regions of the 3 realms, then compete from the major realms, and finally gather at the path to heaven to compete for supremacy. Half a month later, a huge piece of news spread out from the 3 major realms at the same time, sweeping through countless races and causing a huge commotion. The Celestial Court opened the 9 paths to heaven, calling for the young geniuses of the 3 major realms to explore and gain experience. This caused a great storm. Countless living beings participated, and an extremely terrifying golden age had arrived. Shocking geniuses were directly recruited by the Celestial Court, and all living beings in the world were qualified. This was undoubtedly a great thing, and it was also a gathering of the 3 major realms' geniuses. The Heavenly Power King and the other emperors who stood in their golden years became the protectors of the 3 realms battle of geniuses, maintaining order and selecting Ingia. The older generation retreated behind the scenes, and the golden age belonging to the younger generation began just like that. Time was merciless, and time flew by. Suddenly, 100 years passed, and the universe geniuses battle of geniuses ended. The young geniuses of the 3 realms rose, and a new era arrived. A golden age of 100 years, and many young gods of war emerged. 100 years, to some people, was just a snap of the fingers. 100 years to the space-time emperor was like 10,000 years. He had aged quite a bit and was busy with the matters of the celestial world, establishing rules and order, and developing the celestial world with Dali. The immortal elder court also included groups of hot-blooded and loyal people in the celestial world. 100 years passed, and the celestial world was brand new. Everywhere was thriving and living in peace. The 9 paths to heaven opened once every 500 years, and it had already become the most intense place in the 3 realms. The celestial court was occupied by the emperors. Batch after batch of young geniuses were selected to further their studies here. Many people looked towards the depths of the celestial court, where the giant dragon lay, and there was no sound for 100 years. Another 100 years passed. The emperors in the celestial court all heard a terrifying, pulsating sound. The sound was very rhythmic, as if the earth of the celestial world was beginning to pulse. This seemed to be the sound of a heartbeat, and the younger generation were all trembling, feeling as if the giant dragon that had been sleeping for 200 years was awakening. The panting sound was unbearable, and they crawled on the ground. The 6 elders of the celestial court all paled. After 200 years of accumulation, just how powerful had Emperor Zong become? Dong dong dong. As the pulsating sound became more and more intense, it was as if the 9 heavens drum was beating. Many creatures trembled, their eyes turning black, their bodies about to explode. If not for this being the celestial court, protected by the most powerful natural laws, a disaster of heaven and earth collapsing would most likely happen. Emperor Zong is becoming more and more terrifying. Who knows what domain he has progressed to? Is he excavating the most powerful emperor path? The 6 elders of the celestial court sighed in admiration. Back then, Su Yin killed the great ancestor, already extremely powerful. Now, Emperor Zong had been the lord of the celestial world for 200 years, his cultivation already reaching an unfathomable domain. In the depths of the distant celestial court, chi and blood erupted, turning into millions and millions of true dragons that rushed into the heavens. The figure seated within immediately became resplendent and overflowing into the heavens, the sleeping human body's functions awakening. Thunder rumbled, indicating that Su Yan's life force was like a sea, exceptionally powerful. How long? In that instant, that region exploded, heaven and earth destroyed, a corner of the celestial world's great Tao destroyed. What is Emperor Zong doing? Is he creating a great divine ability? Or is he deducing scriptures? A part of the environment collapsed, and Su Yin turned into an indestructible demon god. Cold lightning shot out from his eyes, making people not dare to look at him directly. Apex, Chapter 2173. A figure with an extremely majestic aura rose from the ground, emitting a surging aura. In the celestial world's celestial palace, the atmosphere was oppressive and extremely violent. Other than the strongest emperors who could withstand the might of thunder emitted by Su Yin, the rest were all trembling. This was the pressure of a great god, causing their eyes to turn black and their primordial spirits to be greatly suppressed. Immortal Emperor Zong had been silent for hundreds of years. On this day, he woke up, revealing the sky full of symbols of gods and demons. He was even more brilliant and peerless. He raised his head, and his eyes shot out cold lightning. His body emitted an unparalleled spiritual will, causing the great Tao in the sky to be destroyed. Then, it formed a vast energy light rain that scattered between heaven and earth, landing beside Su Yin. Repeat. Immediately after, Su Yin let out a shout. The broken great Tao order in the sky rumbled as it rotated, revealing the profundities of opening the sky. It was as if the celestial world was being reconstructed, as if the universe was being reproduced. Su Yin reproduced the environment of heaven and earth. The broken sea of stars healed, and the collapsed earth was repaired. Hazy, chaotic fluctuations, and Su Yin stood inside, splitting the sky and earth apart. Boom! Vast fluctuations of the origin of life were emitted. This kind of aura was incomparable, suppressing all directions and filling the world of the celestial palace. The creatures in the world were in a daze, as if they were in a deep sleep. Time seemed to have passed, and all of them fell into the chaos of the great Tao, never to wake up. What kind of Tao is this? The 6 elders of the celestial court were shocked. The fluctuations of the origin of opening the sky attacked their hearts, and they felt endless pressure. They felt that their great Tao was being attacked, and it was about to be broken and reassembled. Leave this place, an expert whispered, leaving Su Yan's place of seclusion. He was deducing a kind of ultimate Tao, changing the appearance of the celestial world. Boom! The depths of the celestial palace were like a sea of chaos. Soon, thick lightning struck down, tearing the chaos apart. The chaos broke out, and heaven and earth were opened. The universe world that Su Yin opened up, deducing metal, wood, water, fire, and earth. It showed the sun, moon, and stars. The fluctuations of opening the sky became more and more intense, as if another world was opening in the celestial world. The mysterious heaven-opening universe was somewhat blurry and dark. Only Su Yan's figure was blazing like an immortal spirit floating in the gloomy world. After 200 years, Immortal Emperor Zong had further perfected the heaven-opening scripture. Boom! It was as if millions of scriptures were being recited, and the celestial sound of the great Tao filled the sky. His primordial spirit left his body and flew into the universe, turning into the great Tao of the heavens and deducing the order of scriptures. The nascent divinity was like a living god, chanting scriptures all over the chaos verse. The aura it exuded grew stronger and stronger, encompassing all the laws of the universe. In the blink of an eye, Su Yan's body changed. His corporeal body became one with the chaotic world. Boom! Immortal Emperor Zhang's aura was extremely terrifying. His figure blended with the universe and turned into a peerless overlord. He devoured all the light in the world and was about to break through the immortal world. Everyone's breathing became a bit suffocating, the blood and qi within their bodies surging. This left them shocked. What kind of Tao technique was Su Yin demonstrating? His corporeal body and the chaotic universe became one, exuding a majestic and huge wave of life, causing the starry sky of the immortal world to tremble. Su Yin was demonstrating his own Tao technique, vaguely revealing a supreme wave of power. The strongest emperors found it hard to bear, as if the great god of creation was born, overlooking the vast universe. As Su Yan's nascent divinity chanted the scripture faster, the aura released by Su Yan's corporeal body also became more and more deafening. The power was too strong, affecting all living things in the world. Everyone had to bow down and follow Su Yin into the Tao. Dong! Suddenly, the extremely powerful shadow swung his fist, as if it had turned into eternity between heaven and earth. The universe war god swung his fist, the meridians in his body rotated, and millions of great Tao immortal patterns were released. Su Yan's figure appeared in a special trajectory, and traces of great Tao rippled from his body. This was the pulsation of the human body, and it was also like the pulsation of the universe. Looking at it from a close distance, it was as if the universe was opening up. He is continuing to deduce a great divine ability. Could it be that the scripture created by immortal Emperor Zong is nearing completion? Some experts were greatly moved. Su Yin was obviously deducing a great divine ability, and with the order of the heaven-opening scripture as the lead, he wanted to deduce a great divine ability that belonged to him. Didn't you notice? Immortal Emperor Zhang's scripture has already become one, and I can't feel any special wave of the heaven-opening scripture. Once an unparalleled divine ability is created, the scripture will be declared complete, and the future will suddenly repeat itself. The changes won't be too big. They were discussing how strong Su Yin was now. Had he reached the limit of the strongest emperor? This was an unknown. However, they believed that once the scripture was deduced, Su Yan's combat strength would reach a new level, and he would complete a complete transformation. All the precipitation would also be nearing completion. After a period of time, the 6 elders of the Celestial Court joined forces with a group of experts and used the Mystic 9 escape technique to set up formation marks, sealing off the place where Su Yan was deducing martial arts. The Celestial Palace returned to its previous state. It was naturally not that easy to create an Emperor Dao absolute art. Time passed slowly, and 30 years passed. Tai Baokai was shocked. The sealed place gradually trembled, and once they got close, the wave of heaven opening that filled the air made them feel suffocated. Was the deduction about to be completed? The commotion was getting more and more frightening. They had no choice but to strengthen the formation and isolate Su Yan's place of seclusion. The shadow inside became more and more blurry and mysterious, as if it had returned to nothingness and disappeared from the 3 realms. Only the place where the bright, great Tao immortal patterns interweaved, a huge outline, could be vaguely seen. It was indescribably terrifying, and it emitted a rain of light that revealed extremely profound waves, as if a great art was being released. The deduction that took 30 years was still not completed. Another 20 years passed, and the shadow inside had almost completely disappeared. Even the outline could not be explored. Su Yan seemed to have disappeared from the celestial world, and only the place where he was in seclusion was filled with strange phenomena. A great world was destroyed, and heaven-opening runes appeared, forming a roaring tsunami that reverberated through the sky. Another 30 years passed, and it had been 80 years. Su Yan still had not come out of seclusion, but in the palace where he was, the world was destroyed, and more than half of the profound runes that filled the sky dissipated. The world inside flickered like bolts of lightning striking down along the river of time. If an expert were to observe it again, he would find that the terrifying Great Tao immortal mark was tearing apart the deep space-time, as if it was splitting the past and present. Boom! On this day, Immortal Zong stepped out from inside. His black hair was disheveled, and his body emitted boundless qi and blood fluctuations. It was impossible to see whether he was real or fake, but he looked more like an emperor than before. He has come out of seclusion. The heavenly palace was in chaos, and many experts walked over. They could not see what level Su Yan had cultivated to, but when they looked into his eyes, it was as if they saw a boundless sea of chaos that included billions of stars and heavenly whirlpools. It was so deep that they could not see the end of it. Some people were lost in it, and they were muddle-headed, unable to find the way back. Su Yan shouted, and these people gradually woke up, and their backs were drenched in cold sweat. At this moment, the 6 elders of the Celestial Court had mixed feelings. Su Yan's cultivation was unfathomable. After close to 300 years of seclusion, he had turned into a top-notch expert, and he could not help but exude a shocking heavenly might that intimidated all living beings. 300 years. Su Yan sighed. Time was really fast. In fact, to become the Lord of the Celestial World, these 300 years could be considered as 3,000 years, and the things that he had gained could not be obtained even in ancient times. Immortal Zhang's transformation was huge, and all the Tao laws and order were buried in his body. Once he awakened, the world would collapse. He did not know what kind of realm he was standing in, but his path had not reached the peak. The completion and reorganization of the heaven-opening scripture had opened up a deeper level of potential, and he still needed some time to settle down. Baokai asked Su Yan, "Why don't you pass down the heaven-opening scripture?" "Wait a bit more, I want to refine a weapon." Su Yan replied. It was not time yet. Even though he was the Lord of the Celestial World, he could not completely change the environment. This day would not be too far away, and there would be such a day in the future. Celestial Court's largest furnace was activated. This was the most powerful Emperor Tao furnace, and immortal flames surged, able to easily burn down the great cosmos. Su Yan took out the remnants of the clay idol, and then Su Yan took out the remnants of the 3 emperor artifacts. Su Yin used the celestial world's great Tao source as the furnace flame, and the most powerful emperor artifact, divine furnace, as the cauldron. He threw in the ultimate trump cards of the three emperor clans and began a vast project. The refining process took a long time, and the celestial palace's furnace flame also burned more and more vigorously, illuminating immortal elder courtyard, radiating the boundless space-time. Clang! Clang! It was like the weapon training pool of the celestial world, and the clanging sounds rang out continuously. The disturbance of the artifact refinement was too great, spreading to the various great regions of the celestial world. Many people came to watch the ceremony, feeling that Su Yin was refining his life's supreme treasure, most likely refining a weapon that was hard to find in this world. The divine furnace burned, furnace flame surging. Year after year, the place where the divine furnace resided was burned into a great black hole. This was extremely ridiculous, to the extent where 3 years later, the divine furnace was about to explode. Heavens, what kind of weapon is he refining? Everyone was shocked. Even the most powerful Emperor Tao artifact couldn't support it. Could it be that immortal Emperor Zong was refining a supreme treasure comparable to the three Emperor artifacts? Using the celestial world's source as the furnace flame, in the entire celestial world, apart from immortal Emperor Zong, who else could do this? 5 years later, the materials melted. Su Yin used heaven and earth as the furnace, the source as the flame, and the remnants were all refined, heaven overflowing blood radiance surging, drowning out the great cosmos, even pouring into the 33 heavens. Even the big brothers were shocked, watching the place where Su Yin was refining the weapon. The blood radiance was too intense, as if an unparalleled demon king was awakening from his slumber, about to turn the celestial world into a blood-red color. This was the terrifying phenomenon born from the fusion of the three emperor artifacts and the remnant body. The commotion was quite terrifying. Immortal Emperor Zong, he actually refined the ancestor's remnant body into a weapon. In a certain place, extremely well-hidden and incomparably vicious words exploded. He deserves to die. Does he think he's the true ruler of the celestial world after being the ruler of the celestial world for a few days? Third ancestor, we don't have a chance anymore. A group of experts hidden underground said in a trembling voice. Immortal Emperor Zong was too terrifying now. Even if he wasn't the strongest emperor, he could still defeat the great ancestor. Now, he was completely invincible in the celestial world. There is still a chance. This time I will kill immortal Emperor Zong. The third ancestor laughed sinisterly. An illusory, primordial spirit Dharma body floated out, holding a bronze divine lamp, and said, when he refines to the most critical moment, he will definitely need to use his life essence blood, and that day will be the day he dies. The divine lamp was lit, emitting a cold light, covering heaven and earth. The third ancestor had died long ago. However, the origin of this lamp was very great. It was bestowed by the ancestor behind him, who deceived the celestial court's army and hid in the darkness for hundreds of years. Moreover, a part of the third ancestor's primordial spirit was in the divine lamp, resulting in a remnant soul of the third ancestor. Chapter 2174. What kind of weapon is this? Isn't it too fierce? The whole world trembled. The heavenly palace churned with endless bloodlight, and the waves it emitted destroyed the sea of stars and drowned the world. The blood light covered the sun, and the scene was monstrous. It was like a supreme demon lord that had passed away was about to be resurrected. It emitted an extremely ferocious wave that made the kings tremble. Each of them was about to be destroyed. What was he refining? Was he refining some kind of evil weapon? Bao Kai wiped away his cold sweat. The three emperor artifact ruined bodies, together with a mud core creature, were refined together. In the end, they dissolved, triggering a heaven-defying effect. The entire world became dark red. Something huge was about to happen. Boom! Heaven and earth exploded, and the bloodlight burned fiercely. Bolts of blood lightning shot out one after another. and the stars in the sky were about to fall. One could imagine how terrifying it was. This kind of storm also shook the major regions of the celestial world. What kind of weapon was immortal Emperor Zong refining? The remnants that took years to refine gave birth to a blood-red apocalypse. Everyone was trembling. Disperse. Su Yan's expression was dignified. He sat cross-legged in the heavenly palace, and the laws of the celestial world intertwined together, forming sword embryos that slashed at the bloodlight. Each sword embryo was formed by the laws of order, forming a sword that could open the sky. They blasted at the bloodlight, causing the world to tremble violently. It was obvious that they had played a major role. 10,000 swords were inspired to kill the bloodlight. They wanted to cut off all the imprints and turn it into the purest energy substance. Even so, the bloodlight that was about to be extinguished surged violently, stirring up an even more terrifying storm. Even the river of time appeared. Moreover, the bloodlight that filled the sky transformed into a blood-colored skeleton that roared as it charged towards Su Yan. Evil creature. Su Yan's eyes widened. The aura emitted from his body was strong and invincible. He reached out a big hand and pressed forward. Billions of Tao marks appeared, and in an instant, the bloody skeleton trembled violently. In the end, it couldn't resist immortal Emperor Zhang's power and exploded with a bang. Disperse. Immortal Emperor Zhang revealed an unparalleled divine power. His magic power was monstrous, and he summoned the original order of the celestial world. He created the most terrifying great Tao flames to burn the bloodlight. But this movement was too big. Day after day, a total of 10 days and 10 nights passed. The bloody light that filled the sky was extinguished, and an extremely rough material appeared. Even though it had not been refined or forged, this piece of material was still suffused with an unparalleled fluctuation, as if it was the most powerful treasure material that had fallen from the heavens. The pressure was so great that the burning flames in the furnace were about to be extinguished. This isn't the complete inheritance, just a portion. Su Yan seemed to have sensed something. His eyes flashed with coldness. The ancestor of the celestial race was truly ridiculous. What about the ancestor of Samsara and the ancestor of the Xian people? What he was certain of was that there were 3 people behind the 3 emperor patriarchs, not one. However, all 3 of them must have come from the same source. This remnant hasn't completely melted yet. The 6 elders of the celestial court were shocked. Even with the great Tao of the celestial world as a furnace, it was still difficult to melt. This was within Su Yan's expectations. If this item had to be forged so quickly, it wouldn't be the ultimate trump card of the 3 Thearchs clans. Immortal Emperor Zong sat cross-legged in the depths of the heavenly palace. His appearance was solemn as he chanted the immortal hymns of the Grand Tao. The heaven-opening scripture appeared, and the order was deduced. Billions of immortal patterns covered the material. The great Tao of the celestial world was the fire, the heaven-opening order was the hammer, and the heavens and earth were the furnace. This was a difficult process of refining a murderous weapon. Su Yan supported it with great magic power. After 10 whole years, this piece of material had completely transformed. It was pure and flawless, as if it had turned into the purest crystal in the celestial world. It emitted vast, immortal energy and flowed with a terrifying luster. Even the great emperors couldn't look at it directly. It was too blazing, containing unimaginable immortal energy. It was so dazzling that the corners of their eyes were about to bleed. Such extravagance. What kind of weapon is immortal Emperor Zong refining? Following that, everyone exclaimed. All kinds of rare materials were taken out from the Celestial Palace's treasury. Each of them was hard to find, and they were surrounded by the chi of heaven and earth. It was as if they were born at the beginning of the world. There was a head-sized purple crystal mother stone, a bowl-sized time stone, a fist-sized immortal fetus stone, Milky Way divine water. The dozens of materials were all accumulated by Su Yan. Each of them was hard to find, and their value couldn't be described by wealth. Any one of them was qualified to be used to forge the strongest emperor weapon. Su Yan threw all these materials into a furnace to refine them. This caused all the experts in the world to be dumbfounded. This was too violent. He refined them all in one go. However, Su Yan's choice of main material was too shocking. It took more than 10 years for the purification to be completed. Now, Su Yan had sealed the strongest divine furnace and threw in the materials and crystals. Time flew, and 100 years passed in the blink of an eye. Su Yan went into deep seclusion to strengthen himself. He completed the 1,000 tempering 100 refinement, and he felt that he was very close to the ultimate domain. Refine a treasure sword. Bamboo Moon suggested to Su Yan. Su Yan didn't know what kind of weapon to refine. Very well, I'll refine a killing sword. Su Yan nodded. There was an even crueler battle to come. There were definitely other experts in the Dark World. Once the general attack began, it would be a battle to the death. There was no room for maneuvering. Did you see your son? Su Yan asked with a smile. Bamboo Moon stared at him and said, I gave birth to him. Why don't you see him? It's not like you. How long has it been since you went? Su Yan's mouth twitched, and his body was a little embarrassed. He scolded, this brat. So many years have passed, and he still hasn't succeeded. In truth, Big Brother was also waiting. He was waiting for Su Siyu to successfully merge with the Emperor Dao. At that time, the Dark World wouldn't have the power to reverse the situation. They wanted to destroy the Dark World, not force him to leave. Look, you don't even remember how many years it has been. Bamboo Moon was annoyed. She was also worried. The Emperor Dao was broad and profound. Once Su Siyu was trapped inside for a long time, there might be a great Dao disaster. Su Yan laughed, and his eyes suddenly shrank. He looked through time and space and saw the divine cauldron. It's time to open the cauldron. Su Yan was full of anticipation. The divine cauldron rang out day by day. The divine power inside was so exuberant that it almost couldn't be sealed. 10 days later, the divine cauldron cracked. The strongest monarch weapon shattered. The Baokai screamed like a pig being slaughtered. This was an incredible artifact. It couldn't withstand the divine power inside and started to self-destruct. The experts of the Celestial Palace were stunned. The divine cauldron had broken into pieces. What replaced it was a billowing divine light. It was so terrifying that it was about to tear apart the great world. The light emitted was so bright that it pierced through the sky. There were great Tao saint dragons rising from the ground and piercing through the ancient star sea. Su Yan waved his hand and refined the broken divine cauldron into energy essence, merging it with the dissolved mineral liquid. He stretched out his hands and formed the shape of a cauldron. His palms shone with light and scattered millions of great Tao immortal patterns. With the order of the heaven opening scripture, they pierced into the resplendent mineral liquid. Slash! In an instant, Su Yan roared. The entire celestial world rumbled. Killing intent surged into the sky. Sacrificial refining a weapon. Such a big commotion. Sword Ancestor opened his eyes and looked at the destination. Killing intent filled the sky. This was the innate killing intent of the celestial world, and it was directly gathered by Su Yan. The killing intent was too terrifying. The innate killing intent born in the celestial world would kill any expert that touched it. Now, Su Yan gathered billions of layers and pierced into the mineral liquid. It was obvious that Su Yan wanted to forge a huge killing weapon. His palms emitted the order of the scripture. It was like millions of heavy hammers smashing down. After 9 days and 9 nights, a bright sword embryo gradually appeared in Su Yan's palms. This was still in a rough state and could not be considered complete. However, once the embryonic form of the sword embryo was formed, it automatically spewed out innate sword rays. One after another, it tore apart the outer world, creating black holes one after another. Sword Ancestor's face darkened. The weapon that Su Yan was refining was much more terrifying than the immortal extermination sword. However, the price that Su Yan paid was too great. Dozens of rare materials, plus the ultimate trump card of the 3 emperor clans, spent hundreds of years to forge and refine it. Its future growth was huge. Once this sword was born, the celestial world's space-time would wind. After all, It gathered the essence of the celestial world to forge and included the innate killing intent. When this sword was formed, it stirred up a boundless storm. The killing intent was shocking, as if the number one sword of the celestial world was born, spewing out boundless killing intent. Gather again. Su Yin roared, commanding the celestial world to gather batch after batch of innate killing aura. Even Big Brother took action, gathering the innate killing aura from all over the celestial court and directly sending it into Su Yan's sword embryo. This also caused the sword embryo to become much more terrifying. The killing aura surged like a tsunami, resplendent and overflowing into the sky. It was hard for people to look at it directly. He was too brilliant, continuously refining and completing it. A bright sword blade had already begun to appear, and it could easily cut apart the great Tao of heaven and earth. Su Yin had been refining for a whole 3 years. On this day, he opened his mouth and spat out 10 mouthfuls of life, essence blood. After doing all this, Su Yan's aura declined sharply, and his face became somewhat old. However, the life essence killing sword had produced meridians, interweaving with the sword embryo's will, and was connected to Su Yan's life essence. Boom! The incomplete sword embryo shone, dyeing the heavens with blood. It was indescribably terrifying. It was nurtured by gathering the celestial world's great luck, and then seized the celestial world's innate killing aura, urging this sword embryo to grasp the celestial world's source, master of killing aura. Once the celestial world wept blood, irregular scenes would fill the sky. Kung Chong! Loud sounds rang out, sword cries spreading through the great world. The immortal sword was about to leave the body, and soon it would complete its final forging. That day, the celestial palace trembled, darkness covering the sun. A terrifying calamity suddenly attacked, shaking the great earth of the celestial world. After several hundred years of peace, no one expected that one day, the celestial palace would undergo great changes. This world was heading towards destruction, towards collapse. Bastard, Big Brother was furious, but he wanted to stop it, but it was already too late. The other party took action too quickly, and no one expected the Emperor Road to appear. The giant who took action in secret had been waiting for a long time. Today, he took advantage of immortal Emperor Zhang's decline to attack the Celestial Palace. Everyone is going to die. Immortal Emperor Zhang, let's see who can save you. Third Ancestor laughed nastily, summoning the Emperor Road. This was the most powerful natural law order, deriving endless killing aura, crushing over with a loud rumble. A bloody hole appeared in the Celestial Palace. This was an unimaginable tragedy. The complete Emperor Road disc was spinning horizontally, about to slaughter everyone in the Celestial Palace, kill immortal Emperor Zhang, who was sitting in the depths.